Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. After the off week, we are back in the garage. Nate Hale and myself, Steve Crane. Don't wave like that, look weird. True. Welcome back. Like I said, this is episode, 322, I believe. Does that sound right?
323, maybe?
It's 322.
Okay.
Good having you guys back. Want to go over some of the sponsors here. You guys, first and foremost, we have a special guest. You guys know him and love him, or at least know him, possibly.
Tolerate him.
First and what?
Tolerate him.
Just bring him on while we do the announcements. Fuck it. Jake Sanders, everyone.
Hey, here we are.
Co-founder of the podcast and cigar guy.
Smoker.
He's with Ozgener Family Cigars and also Crowned Heads. This is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, possibly that you are doing Ozgener Family Cigars on the show. Does that seem right? Have we done the Bosphorus?
I thought we did Bosphorus once, but I can't remember.
Maybe we did.
Maybe we did.
But tonight I want to thank you guys. Jake is the man. We already have some fans on here for you. So Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. That's you guys out there. Thank you for the reoccurring contributions on that. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. You guys can donate or contribute, rather, not only donate to us, but contribute $5, $10, or $25 a month, or whatever you want to put in there. Or if you want to do a one-time contribution to help us out or buy a bottle, do whatever you guys want. Venmo, and it's at Bourbon and BS for that one. So we appreciate that continued support. It helps us keep this thing going. I hope you guys understand and are actually enjoying the Wednesdays that are off. So not sure how long we'll do that, but so far it's been kind of nice being able to do different things. Hopefully you guys are taking advantage of the off weeks as well and still tuning in on the audio after the fact or on the on weeks, obviously, like tonight. I want to thank Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. That's where we're based out of. We've got a cigar from Tinder Box at Easton. It is the Ozgener Family Cigars. This is the Firsat, and we'll be going over that along with some of the stuff that's going on. If you guys are local or going to be in the area on Friday night, we've got Jake Sanders along with Tim Ozgener himself, and he's going to be breaking down the blends, going behind the blends, I think you guys are calling it. Not so much this Firsat. This is brand new, so it's not in this event, but you guys will be talking about it. It is available at Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, but you're going to be breaking down, Tim will be breaking down with Puritos, which we talked about on the show before, but that is going to be aspects of it, different tobaccos used in the blends of both the original Bosphorus and then also the follow-up release, which was the Aramas, and then we've got now the Firsat available. So all three blends are available right now at Tinder Box at Easton, so make sure if you are in the area, you're free on Friday night, that you grab a ticket. It's only $25. You're going to get the two cigars. You're going to get two Puritos from each blend. You're going to get disposable ashtray, which I don't think you're going to take home if in the word disposable, the way you guys describe it. I've not seen this ashtray, but it's a disposable ashtray. You've got a lighter. You've got a cutter. You've got a little bit of swag and also great deals that are going to involve both Ozgener Family Cigars and also Crowned Heads. So we'll be doing some special deals on Friday night. So thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, and come see us on Friday night. Altadis USA. We've got the H. Upman, the banker day trader, for part 2 tonight. So thank you to everyone at Altadis USA for the continued support. And also BS Cigar Company. The gold and silver are available. We've got some new shipments coming in, hopefully soon. I know the silver shipment should be on the next container coming from Nicaragua, so that'll be in the shop here soon. The gold is made by Plasencia, and the silver is coming in that container from Espinosa Cigars. So check those out as well if you're local to the Columbus area, or also if you want them shipped, that's fine too. Get them out to you. And then one more thing, buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. Nate has the 2020 shirt on. When the world hands you, it could be 2024 at this point. When the world hands you some BS, light it up.
So been a lot of BS. Been a lot of BS.
21, 22, 23, 20.
It's almost over. It's almost over. It's okay.
21st century.
All right. I've got the podcast shirt on. Pour one more, light up another. I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll figure this out together.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's good,
Perfect.
good stuff there. I get a lot of chuckles on that in the shop when I wear this shirt. So it's a fan favorite as well. There's other shirts on there, some hoodies, V-necks for the ladies, and then just check it out. buyjack.com/bourbonandbs. All right, Jake. First of all, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is a little bit what we've only done 2 when I'm not there, right? So
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Out of the office. So I am in Erie, Pennsylvania, at a Holiday Inn on the back patio. So thank goodness for good weather.
Giving people a free show out there. That's nice. You know, if anyone comes out, hangs out with you, might learn some things from you.
Yeah.
What are you sipping on there?
Evan Williams. I have a half gallon of bottled and bond.
Is that going to be enough for you? Is it a fresh bottle, fresh crack?
No.
Okay, good.
No, it's been well.
Is that the one you had at the house here?
Yeah. That's actually when I cracked it. So
fair enough.
Wow, it's lasted that long.
It's not the only bottle.
Well, good point.
He's got other bottles.
Good point.
All right, Jake. So let us kind of break down. So you're with Crowned Heads, which is who hired you initially. And I believe it was after that, correct? Or am I getting my timeline wrong here? Is that the Bosphorus came out with Ozgener Family Cigars?
It was the same exact timeline. So like just so people know, just to clarify a little bit, Crowned Heads and Oz Family Cigars they're uniform. They're the same roof. They're under the same roof. And I mean, you can say that Crowned Heads is like distributing 4 Oz Family Cigars, but it's the same mud, it's the same blood, you know. But I like to say what Tim is doing is creating his legacy brands. Okay. So yeah, when I got hired back in 22, July of 22 is my first PCA. Went out there, and that was when it was Luciano or Ace Prime as they called it back then. So it was Crowned Heads.
Heavy into that.
Yeah, so it was Crowned Heads, Ace Prime, and Oz Family Cigars. So it was kind of a wild, and it was a new booth too. So like it was, and we were head sponsors that year. So that was a big year. There was a lot going on, a lot of new cigars. But Bosphorus has gone on to get 93 rated in Cigar Aficionado. Aramas got a 90. And then Firsat is new, so we're waiting on a rating for that one. But Firsat is smoking beautifully, in my opinion. This is a fantastic blend, and we can get into that a little later. But thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. The Firsat, so Bosphorus, like I said, came out first. Then you had the RMS as a follow-up. And then this is the Firsat. So you guys have already built up a little bit of a portfolio here with Oz. Yeah. And is it Oz Family Cigars? Is that what an official name is? Or is Ozgener Family Cigars? Or
We've kind of messed around with it. I mean, this is kind of just, Tim's really messed around with it because he was out of the industry for so long.
Right.
And then he got back in 22. So he has played around with it, added some things. Ozgener is, people can't say normal words on a regular basis anyways. So, Ozgener is very difficult for people to pronounce. And so now he's changed it. Now it's just Oz Family Cigars. So.
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't even pronounce the family's original company, CAO, correctly.
I know. They say cow or whatever the hell. Chow. Yeah. It's good to see everybody's watching, man.
Yeah, right. We got some people on there right here.
John's great. Big fan of the brand for sure.
Yeah, we had John, as you can see, Jonathan, and I see like Byron on here, Bob Keller's on here, Freddie Burke, Lou McGinnis. So I don't know who's all still on here, but yeah, appreciate that, guys. Make sure you share and all that stuff. Get more
Ryan.
People. What's that?
There's Ryan.
He just wants to put up on the screen. See? Yeah. He didn't comment until he saw comments getting put up on the screen. Him with his lovely wife Erica in the picture there. That's so sweet, so sweet. Nice. All right, so this we don't need to highlight necessarily. We'll get into a little bit, I think, if you want to talk about the Bosphorus and also the RMS with the Behind the Blends event. But let's focus first, if you want to, all right, on this Firsat, which is a bit of slightly milder offering, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I've smoked a couple of these now.
Yeah, I mean, it's an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. It's a higher priming.
I'd say.
Yeah,
it's a very dark looking Connecticut compared to other cigars that I've seen use that wrapper.
Yeah, Connecticut seed grown in Ecuador, but higher priming. All of Tim's stuff is coming out of Ernesto Perez Carrillo's factory in the Dominican Republic. I don't know if you can, but that'll be a good.
Here, let me.
That's kind of
up there. Hang on 1 second here. Sorry, I was pouring some water.
No, you're good. I just did it off the rip there. But if everybody can see, so there's a cool vista there.
Nope, wrong.
And that's
sorry, guys. There you go.
Yeah, so that's everything, and that kind of explains the story. CAO kind of does, like Tim likes to say, that they like to do things in threes. So it was like CAO was in threes, which was his father's initials, and then now you have 3 cigars as far as Oz Family Cigars go, where he's doing his legacy brands. So if you look at here, you have Mount Ararat in Armenia, which the locals call it Masis. So what Tim did for Aramas is create a cigar with those 2 names kind of blended together because both of them were trademarked, basically. So he wanted to create a name. So there's Mount Ararat. The locals call it Masis. So there's that. And then you have Bosphorus Strait in Istanbul, Turkey on this side of the vista. So for the listeners, I'm showing the box of Firsat, but the vista is the same in the Bosphorus, Aramas, and Firsat boxes. So this is for where his mother was from, or she was from Turkey. So she's the Bosphorus, that's kind of to commemorate her. And then they met in New York when they were in school. And that's kind of where this teal comes from, is from the Statue of Liberty there. So, and then Firsat being the Turkish word for opportunity, it all fits into the branding.
I got you.
So
good story. You like a good story when it comes to
you like
cigars or anything really, right? I mean,
I think it's cool to help sell any product when there is a story connected to it. It makes it easy. It makes it easy for salespeople or retailers to be able to tell that to consumers. And then something that consumers then get excited about, like, oh, that sounds really cool. I'll give that a shot. Like, if you just sit there and say, if you just go up to someone, oh, yeah, this is it's made in the DR. It's got a Connecticut wrapper on it. Cool. But you tell them the story behind it. It's like, oh, okay. There's an interest and a buzz.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think the biggest point is that, like, it's actually true. It is kind of like a long-winded story, but I mean, it's true. It's very thought out. It's not like us creating a story out of thin air as far as like where we know where the tobacco is coming from. Ernie's doing it, but it's not like, we found this tobacco in Armenia that was grown up on the top of the mountain, and we picked the flower and brought it to Nashville, and then. I like it.
I'm sold.
I mean,
is that a new cigar coming out like next? Is that number 4?
Probably not. Okay. But
I like that story.
Probably not.
That's good. Yeah, you're good at that. I think they should listen to you.
The bullshit. Well, we can't make the bullshit because they're already BS. But it's
right. Goddamn right. Watch your mouth.
But no, I really do love Firsat. I'm really glad Tim decided to do this as the third kind of as the Trinity goes, the third blend. A little tidbit for the listeners, a little inside thing. This is a very close blend, if not the same, of the first Pi Synesthesia, which is Tim's limited edition that he did. His first one he did in 2022, and that was also an Ecuadorian Connecticut, Ecuadorian Habano binder, and the Nicaraguan fillers. So we thought that he had a Habano wrapper that had all major 4 regions of Nicaraguan tobacco in it. That was Bosphorus. He had the Maduro that was a Mexican San Andreas for Aramas, and then he needed a Connecticut. So we tried to urge him to go into those 3 lanes, much like the rest of the, industry does, but he did a little bit more of a pizzazz to it, I think.
Well, this one, so the Bosphorus, are they all box press?
No, only Bosphorus. Yeah. Armas is round.
This one has, and just for the cigar smokers out there, and I'm not necessarily comparing anything other than the construction. It's got a feel of a Padron Anniversary.
Yeah.
It's more square.
I'm talking. So this reminds me.
Squishiness.
We're smoke squishiness.
Squish. I get that. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
The weight and then the construction remind me a bit of, like, say, we're smoking the 55 here, so probably thicker.
Oh, you're smoking you're smoking the 55 Firsat.
I believe so.
You threw away the.
I thought you were smoking the Robusto.
Shit. Well,
it doesn't matter. It's okay. I was going to say, if you're smoking the 55, that's the best size in my opinion.
What's the 55? What's the measurement?
It's a 5.5 by 55.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that size.
Yeah. This is because the 50 is too small for me.
Well, it's a 52.
52 in that one. 50's in the Bosphorus, right?
Yes, that's the tiny dog walker.
Yeah. Anyways, this has got that construction. It's a little lighter. It's got a I don't want to call it an airy draw, but it's got an easy draw on this. And I feel like this smokes a little different than the Bosphorus and also obviously the Aramis. But the smoking experience so far, not just even the flavor profile, but the construction is it's great. It's a lighter draw. And it feels more like I said, a 1964 Padron to me, Anniversary.
I can see that.
And in the looks of it, I mean, it's not it's a smoother because of that box press, but I mean, it's not the tightest. I don't know about yours. Mine's got a little veins and a little bit.
Oh yeah, I said that earlier before we even lit up. Yeah, it's that's
what reminds me of the Padrones.
Yeah, it's
a compliment based on how the Padrones are received and also sold. So
it's a veiny little wrapper.
Yeah. But I like the color of it. It's got this kind of like rich, you may even say Corinthian kind of leather, but I know that that's a cigar. So
it's but it had nice tan.
Yeah, it's a tan. It's very tan, but it is kind of crazy that it is a Connecticut. So but it smokes. I love this. It's not your grandfather's Connecticut. That's what I like about it. It's got a little pepper, a little body to it,
which would probably come from that higher priming.
That and the Nicaraguan fillers, and I think that Habano wrapper helps it too. Because that leaf is just so versatile.
What's the breakdown here? So you got a Ecuadorian Connecticut high priming, and you have, what is it, DR, Nicaraguan, and the filler.
Yeah. Well, let me
pull it up because I just did this on Tasty Tuesday yesterday. I'm trying to remember.
It's Nicaraguan filler, and then Ecuadoria Habano binder, and then Ecuador Connecticut wrapper.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you may be thinking of the Aramas. The Aramas is the DR, Nicaraguan, and Pennsylvania broadleaf.
That might be what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
So,
in fact, that might have been what I did on the. Yeah, that's what I did on Tasty too. That's why I was confused. I did that for the.
Yeah,
we're breaking it down.
Yesterday.
It's a long time ago.
Yep.
What else do we need to know about this cigar, Nate? What do you think of this?
No, I definitely get that
V-cut on there.
I did a V-cut.
Okay.
Nice.
And this new V cutter that I have, like, it makes a pretty deep V compared to.
I love a deep V.
Yep. It makes it a little bit deeper than some of the regular Lotus cutters that we have at Tinder Box. Because this has that really effortless draw to it, I probably next time I smoke one would probably do a punch just to kind of slow it down and tighten it up a little bit.
Sure.
Because I'm like half an inch away from the band already on this cigar.
Slow down, man.
Yeah.
Well, I had a little issue where like one side was running a little bit, and I could see where tobaccos had kind of shifted the way it was constructed. It was a little tighter on one side, so that's why it was burning slower.
Got it.
It's kind of starting to even up a little bit. But like it also has kind of a little bit of that earthy graham cracker that I get from the Padrones that you mentioned, Steve.
Yeah, for sure.
That that 64 natural kind of has a little,
especially just off the aroma.
Yeah, has a little bit of that same. I mean, and I definitely would not have guessed Ecuadorian Connecticut looking at it, but like you said, it's that higher priming, so it's going to have that darker, richer color to it than a typical Connecticut.
Yeah,
definitely smooth on the draw. There is like a lingering spice on the back end of the palate that kind of hangs around. Yeah. Like I don't really notice it much at first, but then later on it just kind of hangs out back there and has a decent amount of spice coming through the retrohale too.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you tell people Ecuadorian Connecticut and they automatically think mild cigar, and this is not that. Like this is, in my opinion, heavier than the original Pie Synesthesia.
Yeah, I would say so because of that higher priming. And I would also say like it's kind of a cool, it's like one step below Bosphorus in my eyes. This is, the Bosphorus is almost, to me, actually like kind of medium plus a little bit. It's not straight medium, and this is kind of that. I think this is more straight medium, as far as body goes. But I just really like, when we got our samples of this, I just really, really like this cigar a lot. So I'm excited to see that hit the shelves and see what everybody thinks. And I also love the colorway with that kind of tealish green with a white box.
Love the teal.
So
I love the teal. Yeah. Really sticks out on that footband that probably can't see on the video.
You saw
the box. Yeah. I do love it. It's almost like Tiffany.
Yeah. Well, and I would say too that, there's a lot of, when you're creating a new brand, there's a lot of adjustments. So I think Tim's made a lot of great adjustments in the last 2 years, as far as adding the footbands, and even the Bosphorus and Aramos have footbands on them too, to kind of differentiate the colorways and the actual cigars. So there's 3 bands on the cigar. You have the classic, the Ozgener Family Cigar band, and then the secondary band either says Aramos Firsat or Bosphorus with a specific colorway. Bosphorus is blue, Aramos is orange, and then Firsat's that teal. And then there's that footband to distinguish between the 3 as well.
Yeah, it definitely has a good look to it. I mean, the band, the primary band, I like it. There's a lot going on that primary band.
It is. Well, and I think Tim knows that. I mean, I think that's why he started adding, the footbands to kind of distinguish it a little more, because the writing on that secondary band doesn't really. Yeah.
But I mean, I like it. It's good looking. The cigar, you say medium. For me, I when I've smoked it and right now as well, I kind of on the lighter side of medium for me. Just maybe it's the flavor profile.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Nate, on that. The retro does have some pepper. I think
it lingers.
It's got a little kick to that retro hail, but it is very. What'd you call the flavor?
Earthy
graham cracker.
Graham cracker.
Earthy graham cracker.
Yeah. It's like oatmeal with a little brown sugar in it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that.
There's a throwback to my childhood.
Yeah. Just saying.
I haven't eaten that in a long time, but that's not a bad thing.
Smoking cigars at breakfast.
That's what I did today.
With the oatmeal and apple, cinnamon.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Now it's starting to make it sound like a cigar cask.
Yeah. Lou McGinnis, I know, Nate, you did comment on there. You can always comment up here, but Lou McGinnis asks, do we know when it'll hit the shelves? We have it at the Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know.
Just now.
Like full shipment gone out or what?
Yes. Yeah, full shipment has gone out with Firsat. Some of the shipments have gone out with Las Calaveras too. Yep, so that was kind of the thing. I do want to say this like on air and kind of to the public, like, and especially like to other retailers if they listen, that, like as a company, like Crowned Heads and Oz Family Cigars, we try to, save, the people that spend money with us, like a little bit of money as far as shipping goes. So like sometimes we'll like hold back a release sometimes, even if it's like a week or 2 weeks, if we know that another line is coming in at the same time.
Yeah,
so, and then we ship it all, and I think some people don't really understand that, but
I can tell you, I appreciate that because, because I have a very small humidor that I have to operate, and
yes,
I had a couple boxes I'd been waiting on for a couple of months,
a minute, yeah.
But then Las Calaveras, you reached out to me about that, and then obviously the Mil Diaz Maduro, which is fairly new as well. And you guys were waiting on another shipment of that. So I was like, cool. Yeah. Thanks for sending it all in just one box instead of killing me on shipping. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's great when I put in orders too. Our office is really great. Adam Shepard, our CFO, is absolutely fantastic. He's literally the backbone of the company. I mean, he is amazing, but he'll always message me like after I send in an order and he says, you want it, shipped all or, separate. And, we get to decide on that depending on the account. So it's great. I think it works well for our retailers.
I think that is nice and you can always ask the retailer, right? I mean, do you need this like now? Because
yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's good. So for you, Jake, the Firsat, where does this line up as far as, I mean, you talked about the rating of Bosphorus being a 93. I don't know which publication that was. And then you had the, was that Aficionado?
Yeah. Because now the new boxes of Bosphorus actually have like that shelf talker built into the box.
Of course they do.
But it's not on, unlike some companies, it's not built on.
It works, Steve.
I know.
It's not built in or attached to the bottom half of the box.
Sure.
It's actually attached to the lid. So when you open it, like it'll hang down, and it's not
right there.
It's not covering the cigar. It's not hanging down on over the shelf. It's hanging from the lid of the cigar.
It's covering that beautiful artwork that he just talked about.
It's that. No. It's 2 inches deep.
All right.
It's on the end.
I love our sponsor. They just put a sticker, just like or something, like right in their corner. Just smack it right on there. That's all you need to do. I mean, God love our sponsor and Altadis with what they did with a great cigar, the anniversary 1935 Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
They did it with the Nicaragua aging room. They throw
and then they put the band on they actually put the band on the cigar.
And as a person that works in a retail shop that has bins and not in boxes, I mean, I get it. It's, I can point it out. And but as a cigar smoker, I'm like, get that off there. That's taken away from the beautiful band. And then you put like an advertisement on there. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the CAO BX3 with the QR code. I'm like, there's no business being on a beautiful cigar band, in my opinion. But my opinion doesn't matter, and I don't get paid to, really do this even, but let alone.
Well, your opinion does matter, but the problem is you can only buy so many cigars. We got to worry about the rest of the world.
It's fair. I don't know. But yeah, that's fine.
We want other people to buy the cigars too. We want everybody to enjoy Crowned Heads and Oz Family Cigars.
I know.
Jonathan
Herring, do you guys send the shelf talkers with the box? If not, we need to get some.
Like I said, on the box where it's attached.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new ones, yeah.
And the 90 rating on the RMS was also Aficionado?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, the vertical on Bosphorus was pretty cool. There was two... the Robusto got a 93, and then 2 of the sizes got 92s, and then the smallest, the biggest size, the I think it was a 6.5 by 54 got a 90. So
yeah. With this cigar now, you are further than I am, Nate. It burns a little quicker than I would say the other two in the line, and I think that might just be the tobaccos and the draw I was kind of talking about. But it gets because of that draw halfway through, it's not it adds a little bit of a kick to it because I think of the way the combustion is on this cigar. I don't know if you guys are getting the same thing, but it's not necessarily like tongue bite or anything like that, but it's actually got a little more punch to it as you get into it.
A little heat.
Oh yeah, it's got a little heat more on the retro the more that you get into it for sure.
Yeah.
But this is, I mean, out of the three for me, this is my favorite.
Is it?
Yeah,
it's got those food flavors for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I don't know if anyone else out there. I know. What's that?
No, go ahead.
I don't know if anyone listening right now has had this cigar. I know Lou had asked when it was hitting the shelves, but if anyone else out there, Jonathan, I don't know if you were able to grab one. I know it was late notice on that, but he had asked what we were smoking tonight. I was curious if anyone had any feedback on this for us other than what we've got, but it is very enjoyable. A lot of food flavors. This is a nice smoke. I would say because of the construction, I am slowing down my draw a little bit. I'm not, some cigars with a firmer draw, you really kind of have to chief on a little bit. This one, you don't want to do that. This is more of for those that smoke a pipe, it's a little bit more like smoking a pipe where it's a nice, easy, gradual draw. So
I think sometimes though, you almost have to balance that out because this draws so effortlessly, and it just feels like it's a little bit lighter pack than some other cigars. Like you want to slow down, but if that tobacco that's in there is not as tight as some other cigars, it might go out quicker. So
I haven't had that experience yet, though.
I'm just saying it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying.
I've had that happen with other cigars where it's like, oh, I want to slow down. So, instead of taking a draw, every 45, 60 seconds, let me see if I can, do, minute and a half or so. And then all of a sudden you go back to it and you're like, well, shit, now I got to relight.
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on the look this up at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's shift real quick and then we'll go to the behind the blends there.
Yeah, of course.
But so tonight we are drinking something a little bit newer. This is called A.M. Scott and Troy, Ohio. So Troy is a city in Ohio and
just north of Dayton.
Just north of Dayton. What are you laughing at?
It's Troy, Ohio, and Troy's a city in Ohio.
Well, I don't know. I mean, not everyone knows cities in Ohio. You know what I mean? Like the way I say it.
Sorry.
Right. Go ahead, Nate. I don't want to get made fun of right now.
No,
it's from Troy,
Ohio.
Which is a city in Ohio. If we keep seeing this over and over, we're going to start sounding like a certain political candidate.
All right.
There it is. But yeah, so this is a newer distillery. They opened up shop in 2022. And when you look at the side of the bottle, you see that this has an age statement of 4 years. So that's why if you also look at the back, it's just MGP. It actually says on the back, distilled in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which is MGP. But then it is blended and bottled at their distillery in Troy, Ohio, which is in Ohio. Yeah, this is the small batch. What was the blue label that you sent me the picture of?
Single barrel.
Single barrel. Okay.
I figured we'd start with the small batch on this.
Yeah.
Single barrel, sometimes if it's a true single barrel, based on like the size of this distillery, you don't know. I mean, how different the single barrels are, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to go with the small batch. If this is what they're considering, I would assume more of a
consistent
flavor. Yeah, consistent flavor there.
Yeah. And this is, I looked it up on OHLQ, $39.99 in the state of Ohio. So 4 year, it's coming in at 92 proof. Do you want to take a You're on your second pour. You want to take a guess at the mash?
Sure. I would say maybe 70. He never gives any indication on his face. You know what I mean? 70.
Yeah, ask Josh how good my poker face is.
72% corn.
And then
just give me the corn there.
75.
Very
bad.
Oh.
And then high rye, low rye.
I think there's a bit in there. I'll call it, if it's we'll revise that, right? So 75. I was at 72, but 75. Let's call it 16 rye.
21.
21. Wow.
And then 4% malted barley.
Wow.
Damn, high rye. High rye.
Mm-hmm. It is a high rye. Typically,
that's it. Yeah, that's MGP's high rye mash build that they are notorious for.
Yeah, there you go.
I think they also have a mash bill that's like in that 36% rye as well. It's a lower corn, higher rye.
Oh, okay.
I think they have that mash bill as well.
Well, if it was 75, it can't be. So.
Well, I know. Right. I know how math works.
In Troy.
In Ohio.
It's usually the same everywhere, except DC.
All right. Jesus. You're on one tonight with the politics, aren't you?
I like it.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. So obviously, they do also produce some neutral grain spirits like vodka.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, when you're a new distillery starting out, you've kind of got two options if you're trying to get into the whiskey game, especially bourbon, it being one of the biggest markets in the country, especially in Ohio, which is the 4th largest bourbon market in the country.
You like that.
So it's one of those where you can either sell a bunch of neutral grain spirits like vodkas, gins, some unaged rums, and try and get your money while your bourbon is aging. Or you can do some of that, but then also source from other distilleries and sell stuff that way until your stuff comes of age. I think we've seen a lot of distilleries kind of go that route as well. So they're sourcing, it's a 4-year age statement. So minimum 4 years on all the barrels that go into this. And then they're basically blending those barrels in batches to try and hit a consistent flavor profile batch after batch. But I don't believe they actually have anything on the bottle that is like batch numbers.
No.
High Bank
at their website here.
High Bank Distillery, when they do their Whiskey War, so the Whiskey War always has a handwritten batch number. The Whiskey War Barrel Proof always has a batch number. Their Double Oak, Double, Cigar Cask, those all have batch numbers on them. This one does not. So it's not.
They've got a lot of different products, though. I'm looking at their website here. They've got a lot of different, kind of like what you're talking about. I don't know if they put it on any of them. Let's see if I can make this website work a little faster here. Let's see. They've got like a barrel proof rye. It says it's sold out right now. Cigar batch rye, which everyone's doing, which is cool. Barrel proof bourbon, Founders Select bourbon, and single barrel bourbon, which we talked about there. They've got quite a bit going on here. So they're definitely busy, which is good for, since 2022. I mean, being in the game so quickly.
Well, and they're also kind of coming in late to the bourbon game. So they've got to put some stuff out there.
Yeah, but I mean, to put it all out, I mean, you got to think about that. I get you're late to it and all that stuff, but I mean, to get that kind of volume out into, what are we doing here?
I never should have thought of that. So
I'm about to turn that off.
Never mind. Nope, it's all right.
Am I boring you? Is that what's going on here?
No.
My point is, I think for a company be out for 2 years now to have that many offerings, that's quick.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money invested into your bourbon when you're sourcing, and it's kind of my point. You know, you look at some of the other, like some of the ones local to us in Columbus, you know, they started putting this stuff out, but it was more than 2 years that they're putting out all these, you know, finishings and everything else on it. You know,
yeah, they were building their
shit. Yeah,
exactly. They were building their profile and their footprint before coming out with all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most of them, I feel like a lot of the distilleries will do the clear spirits, and they'll try to make some money off of that. They'll do your core products like this, a small batch, maybe a single barrel. But I mean, these guys are doing single barrel programs. They're doing like all these founders selects. They got a salute to service. They've got all this stuff, and it's like if they haven't had a chance, if they are, we don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to these guys. Maybe we'll reach out to them and maybe do a single barrel or something with them on an episode. That'd be kind of cool. But I mean, to kind of find out, it's like, you know, are you sourcing everything? Are you currently sitting on? I remember when I first met the guys that have been on the show, High Bank, when I first met them at that, it was 2020, and it was at the Arnold event that we were doing, the charity event, and talking to him, he was sitting on still at that point. I think it was like 3.5 years into sitting on his own juice, but they had their whiskey war, they had the whiskey war, I think barrel proof, and they had a whiskey, you know what I mean? They had some staple products, but they hadn't done anywhere close to what they're doing now. So it's just interesting to see that. I think it's impressive to go all in like that. It's just, again, you had a great point.
Takes some deep pockets.
Well, it takes deep pockets, investors, what have you, but it also takes some balls coming in at this point of the bourbon game. You know what I mean? It is, we don't know if it is peaking. We don't know, but it sure is quite saturated. So it'll be interesting. Nate, what do you think of this?
So on the nose and palate, you know, those first few sips, it definitely tastes a little on the younger side. There's this kind of brightness to it. The flavors that are there are some of those lighter, brighter notes, like some vanilla and citrus and stuff like that. It's not those deeper, heavier, like caramel, butterscotch, like black cherry, brown sugar, you know, notes like that.
Is that, I mean, you guys know bourbons better than I do, even though I've been doing this for a while now, but you guys are more into it. Is that, when someone says it's young, is that what you guys typically would classify as younger, is like a lighter notes?
For me, a lot of like stuff I was drinking last night, or say like Basil Hayden, like just plain regular Basil Hayden. Some of these younger ones come across really bright and kind of have a sharpness to them, and just the way the taste and the mouthfeel is, it comes across kind of thin. Which sometimes that thinness can be the proof. You know, 92, it's obviously not as low as they can go with 80. You know, a lot of your higher proofs are going to have a thicker mouthfeel. But typically for younger stuff, it just has that thinner, lighter, bright, sharp profile to it.
I'd say bright and sharp is like the key that I always get in younger whiskeys. There's not like a rich, there's like a difference between like almost the viscosity of it. You know, there's like a richer note there for like the older stuff, and it's almost rich and smooth in the same point. But
and
like
there are
younger stuff.
There are some exceptions, I think, to that. I recently had a full proof bourbon. It was 117.3. Their normal offering is 90, and the full proof actually the flavor notes were lighter, in my opinion. It didn't taste as rich as the 90 proof did.
Was it the same mash bill?
Wow.
Anything else?
Yeah, same mash bill.
So I feel like we're leaving out some of the things that are talked about, but not always brought up, is the char level, obviously, right? I mean, you know, you can have a lower char level, and I think you're gonna not get a lot of those. And I don't know what this is, mind you, but I mean, like,
and where it's at in the rick house.
Where it's at in the rick house, I think is a big aspect of it, which we'll never know unless we talk to these guys, especially in the small batch. You don't know what they're pulling, you know, and
you have
forcing it, so you don't know that. But you know, that would have something to do with like a full proof or a single barrel. Obviously, I'd be interested now to try the single barrel, see where it's at comparatively for $10 more. But that's why I asked that question. I hear that sometimes the young, usually there's like a harshness to it. You say sharp, this is a little sharp, but I'm curious if that's kind of what they were going for, are the lighter notes. You know what I mean? I'm not defending these guys, but it says at least 4 years, right? And that's the way it works in the bourbon world. I mean, there could be stuff in a small batch that would be older, but I feel like there was a bottle from Whistle Pig that we had, and I about grabbed one in Chicago this weekend. It was the
Camp stock?
Solo, the Solo stove.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about that one, Jake?
No, what happened?
It's the new Whistle. It's this year's edition of the Whistle Pig Camp stock. Last year was the one that they partnered with Traeger. This one, Solo stove.
They literally they used a Solo stove to char the barrel.
I tried to.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm saying like it's a very low char level. And it was not like super bright, but it just had light flavors. But I mean, it's crazy how they did it. You get the whole image in your head with that one. And it was kind of like s'mores, like marshmallow, and it was like very like
toasted.
Sugary.
It was
toasted.
It was a toasted barrel.
Yeah, it was like a light toast.
Yes, because Solo stoves, while they put off a lot of heat, they don't put off a lot of flames.
Kind of the idea of it.
So they couldn't char the barrel. So it ended up just being a really light toast. But that's also a wheat whiskey. It's 85% wheat and 15% rye.
Yeah.
So it's very approachable. I think that's what they were going for with this, is with those lighter notes, something that was approachable necessarily to the masses.
So that's why I was asking about, is it a youngness or is it like they used a lower char level or what?
All of it.
I mean, I'm curious. Yeah, I think there is something to it. But I'm not saying that this isn't. I mean, 4 years, but I mean, I know we've had some like more harsh. I feel like I think this mash bill helps it out a little bit. The super high corn water type stuff. That's when I think of it. It may not be always young, but that's when I hear young. I think that's what I'm getting at. Like this hasn't really gone from the absolute mash bill to getting some of the charred oak, age on it. I mean, this is like just, you take the mash bill, but it's barely touched oak. You know what I mean? That's where it's like, it tastes like corn. That for me is when I hear young. That's why I was trying to ask to clarify from you guys what you thought of that.
No, this doesn't have that corn water.
Young is usually an insult also.
It can be, yeah.
Usually, I think in the bourbon world, isn't it? Not saying you're intending it to be that way, but when someone says it tastes young, you're just like, I don't think it's there. What do you think, Jake? You're laughing.
I'm just like listening to the whole thing because I'm not drinking any of it too, so I'm curious.
Yeah.
Now, so, but it's just funny because it's like, it just fucking sucks. That's not what young means. It just. No.
I think the guys guys and girls that are into the bourbon world pretty deep. I mean, young, they're just like, that's trash.
I don't
Would
think
you
that.
Agree? You don't?
I think for the majority, yeah. Not. I mean,
I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it doesn't mean that. It just means that I can tell that, it's like less or 4 years, 4 years or less. So,
okay. I
mean,
curious.
That's just fact. Like, it's not like I just look at it as like, it's young. And then you look it up and then it is young. I mean,
sure.
It doesn't mean that it tastes like shit. It just
I got you.
Young.
Because I've had some other MGP offerings that were the same age statement as this that tasted a little richer and had completely different flavor notes, like had some of that black cherry on it, even though it was a 4-year MGP bottle.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting what their aim and what their focus is and who they're trying to appeal to with this bottle.
Well, like look at Backbone and like Bone Snapper Rye and like that like brand that came out of MGP like super early. There was like super high proof like barrels like 120, 130, 140 like sitting at that like 2, 3 sometimes or not, maybe not that young, but like definitely sitting at that like 4 and 5 year mark. And at that type of proof you can't it doesn't taste young. It's just like it's just rich because it's barrel strength.
Okay. It's curious. Just I'm always interested to hear that kind of stuff.
And to you bring up, that whole young idea. It reminds me of years ago when we had the guys from Still Austin. So theirs, because I think Jake may have been here for that one. Like that one looked like the color of the whiskey was very dark.
Still Austin was you and Dustin.
Oh, that you
was
had
my COVID episode.
You had the vid.
I had the vid.
But yeah, like that bottle looked very dark. It was very rich, had a lot of flavor to it. And like we were guessing somewhere in that 5 to 6 year range just based on that flavor profile. But because of the climate where that barrel was aged, it was actually only a 2 year.
Yeah. All right. I don't go. I mean, we can talk about this all night long. I was just curious what young to you guys meant. Because I can look at it the other way where, I've been to some bourbon meetups and it's like, this is 22 year, and I'm like, yeah, it tastes like wood.
Yep.
You know yeah. I mean?
There's a balance.
Like, really oaky.
Yeah. But
it been there.
Tastes like,
it tastes like I'm drinking toothpicks.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that you licked a tree or something.
Chewing on
pretty much. So it's kind of like, I was just curious. I do think that it says it's 4 years. It is lighter. I think I'm enjoying it. It does, to your point, have a little bit of a bite to it, at times. Not every sip for some reason, but sometimes it does hit a little bit.
What's the proof again?
92.
92.
This reminds me because
it's a weird proof.
When we mentioned the mash bill and that it was MGP, Jake noted like, oh, that's that high rye that MGP is known for. And all of a sudden in my mind, I was like, oh, Redemption high rye bourbon.
Yep.
That's what this reminds me of.
Redemption. Well, it's what it is. It's
right.
That's the mash bill that they use. So
so interesting. So behind the blends here, let's go back to the Firsat here.
Yeah.
As we round out to part one here, but before we get to the ratings. So Tim Ozgener, he's traveling the country, right? And he's stopping by. He's got to stop on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. No,
he's got an event Thursday.
He has an event tomorrow.
Thursday.
Yeah. He's got an event tomorrow we're at the Grand Resort in Warren, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Friday at Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, where we're based out of. Well, kind of give a breakdown for those listening that may be wherever, whether in Warren for tomorrow night or in Columbus for the Tinder Box at Easton, or if they see it pop up, because these aren't the last two stops, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
No, so he's doing stuff all the way to the end of the year. I have two more
pop up on social media, whether it be like Jake Sanders or whoever your local rep is. Or if Tim Ozgener is pumping it out there, if you guys start following him and they hit your local brick and mortar, what are they expecting from this event?
So basically, what it's supposed to be a true tasting event. We were trying to think of something that, and you can probably name a couple other companies that have done, kind of something, like this. But, Tim actually got this idea from the last time he was at Tinder Box when I brought him by.
We had a nice brainstorm.
Yeah, and I think it was great, especially since he hadn't been to the Tinder Box in a long time, all the way back to the CAO days.
Right.
That's what
the idea. Yeah. So
Tim did when Tim was still with CAO. He did that LX2 event, which was smoking a Ligero Pure.
Yes. And he brought that up when we did our big Zoom meeting about this. So, I mean, it's about creating that experience and creating a true tasting event and not just having, a rep out there and having specific deals on, whatever the new cigar is. I'll kind of go through the gist of it. I don't want to, I guess we will spoil it for everybody, but, the idea is to have a ticketed event. And the way that, he's actually learned so much just speaking to Ernesto and going down to the Dominican Republic and going to the fields and stuff, and them blending kind of together and understanding like where these different tobaccos come from and what the different notes are from the regions. And that's kind of the idea of this whole tasting event. So like what they're getting in this package, you'll get two Puritos, you'll get a wrapper and a filler leaf. I should have grabbed some from the truck, but You'll get 2 Puritos, 1 wrapper, and 1 filler leaf. So you'll smoke both of them, and we'll smoke them together. And it's supposed to be a guided tasting as well. You know, it's not just like where we throw a bag at somebody and say, "Have fun," and we have our deals at the end of it. You know, it's so. Yeah, there will be deals on special boxes and great deals. So they're getting those 2 Puritos, and then we'll smoke a Bosphorus together. And then so we'll kind of have one and both of the Puritos and then smoke them together. And then we'll light up a Bosphorus and then understand like where those flavor profiles are coming. Now, we couldn't do a Purito of every single, tobacco that's in the Bosphorus because there's quite a bit in there as far as an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, which is one of the Puritos. And then he has a double binder, which is a Nicaraguan Jalapa and an Ecuadorian Connecticut binder. And then it has Condega, Jalapa, Ometepe, and Esteli Nicaraguan fillers. So obviously we couldn't do that whole thing, but you're going to get that. Yeah, you're going to get that Nicaraguan Corojo that is in the filler leaf of the Bosphorus.
Okay.
And then we're gonna switch to the Aramas, and you'll have the Mexican San Andreas Purito for the wrapper, and then we'll have that filler leaf for the Aramas too, and then we'll smoke a Bosphorus together as well. And the cool part, what I like about it is there's actually going to be a tasting booklet that is handed out to each person that is at the event and bought a ticket. And so that tasting booklet is going to be a kind of a guide as well. And that way you can write down in it. It's like just like a regular pocket size booklet. And you can write down exactly what you're tasting in that. And you can actually go back after you smoke those Puritos, and while you're smoking the whole cigar, you can bring out those notes in it. So, and all this is guided by Tim and Q&A and all that. And then you'll get a lighter and a cutter and the disposable ashtrays too. So
very nice. Yeah. It sounds like a great event. It takes some of the tastings that we've done before, which are all great. But I mean, the fact that you have the owner and the blender behind it, as far as what he worked with Ernesto Perez Carrillo on these blends, it takes it up a notch. And I think that's, when we were brainstorming with them that day, I know he kind of had an idea already of what to do, but I mean, I think some of these ideas came, he tried to amp up the experience a little bit with the tasting notes. And is there a map? And he talked about doing a map. Is that part of it as well, or no?
It's not a true map, but it's almost like a, I gotta remember what's actually in the book. I think there's a tasting wheel in it with the regions, kind of like that old whiskey tasting booklet that I showed on the podcast a really long time ago. And it mimics that a little bit. And the idea too is how do we get the closest thing for the consumer to being in a blending room with Tim and Ernesto Perez Carrillo,
Right.
So, and that's the idea behind it. And I think the ones that have been done, these will be my first that I've done with Tim. I've done other events with Tim, but these will be my first behind the blend events with him. And I'm excited to see how they go. I'm excited to see everybody's reaction to them because he's been doing them ever since we got back from PCA in March.
Okay, so a few months now he's been doing these things. Nice.
Yeah. And he actually did one. He was in Turkey the whole month of June, and he did a full-blown tasting at a lounge in Istanbul, Turkey, which is awesome because I think it was pretty close to the actual Bosphorus Strait. So they're smoking a Bosphorus in Istanbul, Turkey, like near the Bosphorus Strait. Yeah. So with his family's heritage and, his mother being from there, I think it's really cool. Now, how can we get that experience to, Fido and Tinder Box at Easton? I think we'll do a good job. So
I think so. I think it'll be you can translate it to a point. Lou McGinnis asks if there's going to be a behind the blends in Cincinnati at any point as of now.
We haven't talked about it, Lou, and I know you're excited, but you're definitely going to show up. So I can say it now. It's going to be, I believe, October 10th. I'm going to be at Creekside with Tim in Mainville. So, and Lou is familiar with that place too. So
good. Well, there you go. So
yeah.
I encourage you guys to follow, if you're on, obviously the ones listening on Facebook, try to follow some of your favorite brands, the ones you're interested in, like Crowned Heads. Follow, Jake, if you're part of the Bourbon BS community, or, look them up on Instagram, and
follow Tim, follow Oz Family Cigars, because Tim has been doing it a lot better. And I've been doing a lot better announcing kind of where I'm going to be more in the video form. So, and I like to, you know how I like to do things. I like to stuff like 10 pounds of whatever in a 5-pound bag. So I bunch everything together.
I was just saying to Kristen that your Instagram videos are really nice. Definitely have gotten a lot, like, not that you're bad.
Stepped up.
Yeah, not that you're bad, but like with the graphics coming in and all that stuff. I mean, that takes time. And we're so used to the ones that are on social media. You see all these reels and all this stuff, and you just scan through those, flip through them all that time. And I appreciate what you were doing on this last one where you announced everything. Because again, that takes time. And you're right.
There's a lot of information in them. There's a lot of information, and it's a chance to tag the shops too. Mm-hmm. I think, unfortunately, all of us are busy all the time. So not everybody gets to promote everything in a grand scheme of things, or, a month out or so, whatever. So we gotta all do a better job of getting these things out so people can actually know about them and come enjoy them and plan for them. So,
well, and I'm gonna put that on everyone else as well, because as someone that does it for, a shop in this industry, the cigar industry, you can do emails, you can do Instagram, you can do Facebook, you can do all this stuff. And I still have a lot of people be like, I didn't know anything about this. You can put flyers up in the store, all this stuff.
Have a little banner from an airplane going around.
Yeah, without like literally standing in front of someone and saying it, which is like, you can't do that obviously, but it is on, I think, people that are interested in these things. That's where I was trying to encourage them. Follow them if you're on social media. Try to follow the people that you're interested in, the companies you're interested in, and also, if you're at a local brick and mortar like Creekside or Tinder Box at Easton, kind of make sure that those emails aren't going to spam. If you follow them or you're on an email list. I know my email is so many email lists. I don't even realize.
I get like 50 a day and just erase half of them.
I have no idea how I got on one. There was one I was like, I think I subscribed to this when I downloaded an app like 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, I'm like, why did this name pop up? I had to unsubscribe all over again. I'm like, is there like a statute of limitations? Like, is there like a
no?
I unsubscribed 10 years ago. We got you back on. I'm like, what the fuck?
No, they have your information. You're screwed. Buy my stuff.
Yeah, I unsubscribed again. Anyways, that's just but it's on everyone to, if you want to get the information, you got to either log on, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, because I've heard a lot more of that recently. And I think it is post the COVID years, is that people are like, I don't get on Facebook anymore. It's just too political. It's too this. It's too that. So it's like, you can filter that. You can unfollow people that you don't want to have on there. So you can make it all, like some people are like, I don't want to get on Facebook because I don't want to see all this stuff. I'm like, it doesn't just appear.
Don't follow them.
You could literally like make a Facebook account and follow just Jake Sanders.
You could.
Seriously, like you could do that. Follow Bourbon BS podcast, obviously, also Tinder Box at Easton and
although I will say I'm a little bit guilty of the other thing that you're talking about too sometimes. So I gotta, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Siri was jumping in there.
Yeah.
They're always listening.
But it's exciting. I'm really excited for Friday. I'm excited for tomorrow at the Grand Resort. And I think we're bringing a new light to our brands.
And I think you need that, I will say, because, Ozgener, even though that family name has been around the tobacco and more specifically the cigars since the 90s, CAO, people know CAO. They don't know what it stands for. Like you said earlier, Nate, people can't pronounce it all the time. They don't know how to. I'm not saying they can't. They just don't know how to. But when I say to someone like, hey, Friday, we got Tim Ozgener coming to the shop. And they're like, okay. You know what I mean?
That's
like
awesome. Yeah, I love it.
Well, I'm just, no, they don't. I think you misunderstood.
Oh, you don't. Yeah, I misunderstood. You're right.
Yeah, they don't necessarily know who he is at this point. Because
not anymore.
Behind the scenes, you know, he's behind.
Well, he was out of the business. He was out of business for a good period of time too. You know,
correct.
So
absolutely. All right, let's round out part one here. Rating.
Sorry, I'm trying to get some light for you.
No, you're good. Well, you're good. So we've got the A.M. Scott. This is the small batch, and 10's the best rating you can give it. Cigar is the Ozgener Family Cigars. This is going to be the Oz OFC. What do you want? How do you want to call it?
Yeah, just Oz Family Cigars or OFC.
Yeah, and this is the Firsat. This is a new addition to the lineup here. So, and then the pairing for Nate and I here in the garage here. You can always say, if you're smoking, obviously the Firsat, you know, how it goes with that Evan Williams as well.
Yeah.
So,
let me go first, or you guys?
Yeah, go ahead, Jake. You know, what do you think? I mean, I know you said you already that you really enjoy this cigar. So,
yeah, Firsat to me. I might light up another one. I really do love that blend. But I was a big fan of the Paysan Estate Yellow, the first edition that he did. When he did that cigar, that was my favorite. That was my favorite cigar from 2022. Not just because I worked for the company, but out of the different ones that I smoked, even from other brands, that was my favorite cigar from 22. And I had tried when we had done, because Tim was doing other events where I just had him travel with me, and we would have certain, ramifications for lounges to have him come to the shop. But whenever I was with him, I was trying to put that bug in his ear about, hey, like, I really, really somehow want you to integrate that blend, back into the fold. You can't. It was such a good cigar that, doing only 2,500 boxes of it was not enough for me. So,
right.
So, and I think a lot of people, when I was doing events, we did a couple events in New York. We did a couple events in New England with Tim. We did a couple events in Ohio with Tim, and everybody kind of said the same thing is about how great that cigar was. So, bringing this back and actually giving it, a little bit more oomph with that higher priming, I think it's a great cigar. I think it's rolled really well. I think Ernesto did a great job on this cigar, and I like the updated branding because it seems a little bit more established. When Bosphorus came out, it was Bosphorus, and it didn't have the footband on it. It didn't have the rating behind it, and it's hard for a new brand to come out and just have one cigar and a limited edition and then try to sell that. And then a year later you have Aramas. So now you had two cigars, and you had a new limited edition for 2023. So now you have three, and now it's more established. You have the footbands on it. You have the colorways. You have the ratings and the shelf talkers or the shelf sliders in the boxes. I think it's all just really great. So I'm excited to be a part of it. But back to the cigar. Love the cigar. I think it's that mild to medium, straight medium, kind of like you said, more mild to medium.
I said lighter side of medium. Yeah, for me.
Yeah. I think this is straight medium for me. I love the smoke production. That's something that we didn't really talk about yet. I think that thing just smokes like a freight train for, being something that has that Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper on there. And the draw, I've smoked a lot of them, and I've never had any construction issues or any draw issues yet.
I can't imagine the way this thing smokes that you would have a plugged one. That would be just someone fucked up on this.
Yeah, it'd be packed. It'd be like 2 pounds of tobacco in that one
retail
cigar.
industry. If someone came like, this is plugged, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that one's fucked. Like that's there are some cigars that I'm like, well, with the humidity changes and this and that and all that stuff, it's like
it looks like
it's a firmer draw. Like, no, they actually added like 3 extra leaves.
It's a box press figurado. It actually kind of deformed, and now it just looks like a fucking egg.
Yeah, they kind of did one of these things to it.
If there's one of those that's plugged, someone at the factory should be fired.
Yeah. But I really like it. I'm just drinking the Evan Williams Bottled and Bond. I think that's a really versatile whiskey, so I think that's going to go with really anything that I'm smoking. So for me, it's a great pairing. That graham cracker that you were talking about, Nate, is fantastic. I get that. I got that from the first, light. It's very bready to me, so that fits that graham cracker portfolio. I like the slight spice characteristic on the retrohale, and I think that it lingers a little more than what you would expect it to, just off of first glances. And then kind of that classic Bottled and Bond richness of the Evan Williams just kind of ties it all together. So I think this is even though I'm not with you guys, I'm not in the garage, and I'm kind of just sitting out here on the back patio of the Holiday Inn, I think it's a great experience for myself.
Yeah. Good. Nate, how about you here?
On the whiskey, I mean, it wasn't bad. The first couple sips, like I said, the first couple sips were a little light, kind of sharp, that sharpness I was talking about. But thank you, Freddie. I haven't even given a rating, and Freddie's already.
We already know where you're going with this. I mean, I just am curious how you're going to word it. I mean, you started it with it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For what I like to drink, though, there's not as much there as I would like, and like this is about half the price, or this is twice the price of what Jake's drinking for a fifth. But I think like that Evan Williams Bottled and Bond is one of the best bang for bucks on the market. I think this one, that $40 price point, 92 proof, honestly, and this is because it's me, I'm not a fan of that MGP high rye. Like when I mentioned this, mentioned this kind of tasted a little bit like Redemption high rye, I don't like that. I'm not a big fan of that product. I don't buy Redemption because of that. Mm-hmm. I think this one, I actually like this a little bit more than that Redemption high rye, but it's got a slightly higher price point to this one. So I'll be generous and give it a 7.
Just be honest. No one's looking for generosity here.
6.5.
Right there.
6.5.
Wow. I'll be generous. So give it a 7. Like, what do you really think?
I mean, it's solid.
Based on what you say,
it's solid. It's just kind of, I think it just kind of gets lost with what else is available at a $40 price point.
Okay.
Kind of like
it's a mediocre 3.
Kind of like Traveler. Like Traveler's that same price point.
Traveler's kind of grown on me a little bit, man.
I like Traveler. I'm like the only person.
It's not a bad bottle. I think it unfairly gets trashed. But
I still have my opinion on why it gets trashed.
Because people think it was the next best thing from Buffalo Trace. It's like, no.
Not. People thought they would get money off of it by flipping it. And then they realized that this is going to be regular production. And then they were all fucking butthurt that they aren't making flipping money.
Yeah, they're not.
I bought them, and they didn't limit it. So I bought like 18 bottles. You guys don't want the next shipment's already there. This stuff sucks.
You're exactly right. Yeah. You're exactly right.
I know I am. Totally. I mean, I've given that theory several times on that one, and no one wants to fucking admit it. And it's like the only reason you snatched that up is because you thought you're going to turn a $40 bottle into maybe even like
100.
Maybe 100, but even like you're going to make 20 to 40 bucks off each bottle, and you're like, all right, I'll buy 10. I just made $400.
Well, that's what people were doing.
Most people got into bourbon just to make money.
They have to drink whiskey. God fucking forbid you have to drink what's in the bottle.
You're exactly right.
Thank you, Jake.
I feel the same way.
For the cigar, I give the cigar an 8.
Fuck.
I think it's no,
side rant.
Yeah. No, I do like the cigar. The slight little uneven burn I had, I never relit it, touched it up, like it caught up and evened out all on its own. So there's something to be said about the construction for it to be able to do that. It had enjoyable flavor. To me, this is, like a first cigar or an earlier cigar in the day. Probably go great with a cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you said that lighter side of medium, I was sitting there, I had just taken a draw, and I was like, oh, kind of reminds me a little bit of Laranja Reserva. with that strength profile and some of the flavor notes that are there. Like that was the cigar I had this afternoon with my cup of coffee after I got up. So like to me, this is something that, you know, might go well with the, you know, with a cup of coffee and get your day going. Burned a little fast for me. That's my big critique, if you will. It's just kind of burned a little faster than the Eremos or the Bosphorus a little bit. But like I said, next time maybe I do a punch cut on it and see if that slows it down and it improves that some and gets it last a little bit longer. So, but all in all, it's a really good cigar. And you know, glad I got to smoke one.
Yeah, me too.
Pairing, I'll give the pairing a 7. I think the cigar helps the whiskey, but not necessarily the other way around.
It's a fair statement. So the whiskey for me, 7.5. You know, I'm not necessarily nearly as hard on it as Nate is.
You were wanting him to give him a harsher rating.
I want to be honest. This is your $40 bottle of a sourced whiskey at your hometown distillery. That's where we're at right now.
That's a good way to phrase it.
This is like this. I mean, it's MGP. So Nate, you really actually, I think I don't want to say the best thing you said, but the fairest thing you said is that you don't like this mash bill typically. So
coming from
that's
MGP,
not
no.
like it's knowing more information as opposed to just going in there and say you went to the distillery, say you were in Troy, which is in Ohio. If you went in there, you're like, yeah, I don't really like this. This tastes young. This like all those things we were talking about earlier. But for me, it's like this is your sourced
new distillery,
anywhere like Columbus, Ohio, Troy, Ohio. It could be somewhere in, you know, Wyoming. It could be any of the 50 states, and it's a sourced 4-year bottle from your local distillery that if you are a fan of that distillery, if you took a tour, you did like, oh man, this is great. Have you had this? This is from my hometown. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when we have some of our more frequent guests like Watershed, like, you know, High Bank, you know, Echo, like stuff like that, it's not bad. It's just this is where you start, I feel like.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I give that 7.5 because it's a fine bottle. And it's funny because for a lot of the shows, we'll talk about how, like, you know, for a while there, they kind of hid that it was from a source like an MGP. And now in the bourbon world, if you say MGP, it's like, oh, well, they went to the best and this should be good.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
Like, who are we insulting here? If you say it's young, if you say it's, you know, not like the greatest, it's like, are you insulting, you know, A.M. Scott, or are you insulting the big boy MGP here? Like, let's think about that. So,
well, MGP don't care because they already sold that barrel, so they already
agree.
made their money.
I agree, and I don't know the ins and outs of that. I mean, sometimes I think, you know, maybe they do sell certain stuff for less than, you know, hey, you can do this or for this price, or you can do this for that price.
I'm sure they do.
Based on their
it's probably
budget
just like tobacco leaves.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I was interrupting.
No, you're good. This cigar. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 for what it is, right? I think this is a good cigar. I think, well, I mean, I'll say this. If Cigar Aficionado, if they smoke this and maybe the 55 exactly, because I don't know what other sizes I've smoked to this, but if they don't smoke this blindly, and I'm not saying it's identical because I know the blend's not there, but if they don't rate this in the same ballpark of a Padron 1964 Natural, then I already questioned some of their ratings. Obviously, I don't question. I don't agree with them, but I think this is something that if someone is a Padron 1964 Natural smoker, I'm going to say, hey, try this Firsat. It's from Ozgener Family Cigars. Yeah, Ernesto Perez Carrillo. I'm not going to tell you the blend, but if you love those exclusivos, if you love that, I need you to try this cigar because it's going to have some
I didn't think about
similarity.
that, but
the construction's very similar. Flavor profile, I actually prefer over the 1964 natural, but that's what my mind keeps going back to.
Okay.
So I would be interested, and maybe it's just my because I don't smoke a ton of those 64 naturals, but I mean I might actually do that after the event, whatever's left over. You know, if we have some Firsats left over, I might do that one day and just do a back-to-back with a 64 natural and this. I might be off, but I'm just going off of my memory.
That'd be cool. That'd be a cool little
I think that would be something to do as a blind taste test. Like, one of these is a Padron 64 natural, one of these is a Firsat. Smoke them.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Pairing, the pairing's not the greatest here for me. I mean, the pairing here, the whiskey is overpowering. Not necessarily strength wise, but flavor. It's like they stand up to each other, but I just the cigar I'm enjoying more, I think, than the whiskey. And so when I take a sip of the whiskey, it's kind of we could definitely pair better. Well, that happens a lot on this show, is that we could definitely, once we've drank what we have and smoke what we have, like, we can say, all right, well, this cigar would definitely be better with a different bottle. This bottle would be better, vice versa. So pairing, I'll give 7. Definitely not, they're not meant for each other.
No.
But I mean, it's been enjoyable as we're talking here. I mean, I'm enjoying sipping on it and smoking this. So yeah. All right. That being said, once again, Thursday, Tim Ozgener will be in Warren, Ohio.
At the Grand Resort. Yep.
Right.
And then we'll be at Tinder Box Friday night. We're starting at 6 p.m.
Yep. 6 p.m. Tinder Box at Easton.
If you haven't got your tickets, please get your tickets.
That's right. Limited space there, only $25, and that gets you everything that Jake talked about here. So it's going to be a great experience.
It's like unheard of for $25.
I agree. And also, for those that are going to the Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio on Friday, it's just the cigar experience is at $25. Fido, where we'll be on their patio, which it looks like great weather last I looked. It's going to have extended happy hour prices. Normally ends at 6. We start at 6. If you're part of the event, they're going to have deals on appetizers, on drinks, and so it should be a great night. So
can I go?
No, you have to work.
No. I knew that was the answer. I was just
sold out, Nate. Sorry, it's not sold out. It's not sold.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys.
Well, we're gonna plan on being there a little earlier, so maybe we can hang out a little bit with everybody before we actually got to get everything set. So
absolutely. Guys, thank you. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We're going to take a quick intermission here. Stay live on the feed here, but if you're listening to the audio, click over to part 2. But we are going to kind of take the Behind the Blends theme and apply that to life in part 2. So cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We will be right back.
Cheers, guys. Think.
What did I miss here?
Freddie Burt said the world hasn't been the same since I gave a 10 rating. And I was like, yep, that was the chicken cock rye back in September 2020.
That's hilarious.
Well, I'm pretty sure the world went to shit before that. But.
Yeah, we're starting to pull out a little bit then. Yeah. Open back up a little bit.
Funniest story with that brand is I had a couple ladies that came in and they were looking for a bottle of bourbon as a gift to someone, and we had the chicken cock double oak at the store.
Okay.
And I'd mentioned that bottle because I'd actually just finished mine and I thought it was a damn good bottle. And they're like, oh, that's hilarious. We should do that. Because when he was in the hospital and he came out of surgery, he was wearing boxers that had chickens on them. And you know how you always see those stories of people saying stupid shit when they come out of anesthesia?
Sure.
And he said, this firefighter said to the nurse, hey, you want to see my cock? And it was because there was chickens all over his box. So they're like, that's perfect. I was like, well, it's a good bottle. And now you got a story to go with it.
Sales a sale.
That's right.
Classic.
And yes, Jonathan Herring, you were on that show.
Good old Jonathan Herring.
Yeah, we had both the bourbon and rye. The rye was the first bottle I ever gave a 10 rating to. And Jess actually looked up online and bought a bottle out of Missouri and had it shipped to my house.
And now it's available in Ohio and elsewhere.
Yep.
That's great.
You guys care if I run to the restroom real quick?
Go ahead.
Be right back.
We've had some good experiences with chicken cock whiskeys.
Oh yeah, because we also had that Island Rooster.
They've been very generous, like a lot of companies have been for us. When they send samples, so appreciate that. For those that are in the intermission right now, so Jake's going to take a quick break there and come back, but so we are still drinking for those just tuning in because I keep seeing the numbers go up and down on the live feed here. But we've got the A.M. Scott. This is a local to Ohio. I don't know how far the distribution is. We might be reaching out to them and we'll find out more. They've got a single barrel. We're doing the A.M. Scott small batch tonight. And I'm still kind of finishing up. I'm kind of milking it a little bit. But the Oz Family Cigars, the Firsat, and they just lit up the
Upman Day Trader.
There you go. From our sponsor, Altadis USA. Great cigar. Kind of concerned going from the Firsat, which we're talking about the draw.
How far down I smoked that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I mean, I'm curious of the comparisons if people are open to it, like the comparisons of that cigar to a Padron Anniversary.
Oh, dude! As soon as you said it, it made sense,
bro. I mean, I'm smoking this thing, and
like
I'm not saying
that soft box press, the kind of soft and squishiness.
Everything reminds me of it,
like it was missing a leaf. Yeah. I mean, obviously a different blend.
Yes, no, I know that.
But yeah, just the way it drew, the way it felt, some of those similar flavor notes. Yeah.
Debatably better.
Well,
I like
especially for the money. We didn't even talk about the money for what is the Firsat run?
So it's in line with everything else. Jake can kind of tell you, but it's less than a Padron, but it's still. I mean, it's in that. I think
11 to 13 before OTPs, or
I think more like 12 to 15.
Okay,
put in there.
Yeah, because I know I have
similar to the Bosphorus, similar to the Aramis.
Yeah, I think I have both of those on my shelf for $13.99.
Yeah. Jonathan Herring, Jake currently running through the Holiday Inn lobby. I love it.
I love how he just leaves all of his shit out there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, Freddie, we want to try that one too. That was the Cotton Club. That was the Cotton Club one that he did that actually came in the tin. It was an ode to the Cotton Club of New York, and they used to smuggle whiskey in those metal tins into the club. But yeah, that was a $500 bottle. They were not gracious enough to send us that.
Oh, but the Island Rooster
was $250. So they were exactly, yeah.
And that was along with when we were highlighting that one. They sent us another fifth of the bourbon and rye.
Yes, they did.
So that was
and we smoked
silly.
And we smoked the BX3 with it.
It was silly. That package that came, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, they just sent us about $400 to $500 worth of booze.
400.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I mean, unreal.
Yeah.
All right, Jake, you ready there?
Yes, sir.
I want to keep you out too late at your hotel.
Ah, you're good. Seems like they're very accommodating.
Nice. It's a Holiday Inn, man. What do you want?
Yeah.
Nice continental breakfast in the morning for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode, did we decide on that? 232?
322.
322? Is that what we decided? You said 323 maybe.
I think that's what you put in the description.
Then that's what it is. 322.
Yep.
Okay. Welcome back. Part 2, Beyond the BS. No.
I was thinking, last week was, but we didn't do one.
We didn't do it yet. Got Jake Sanders from Crowned Heads and Oz Family Cigars still on with us. I'm still finishing, like I said, milking the Oz Family Cigars, the Firsat. And we've got in part 2, we have here in the garage the H. Upman Banker Day Trader for our part 2, thanks to Altadis USA. So we appreciate that support from Altadis USA. What are you smoking there? You still on the Firsat?
I am smoking Aramis.
Okay.
So it's got the orange band on the bottom, the second band there.
So, bit fuller offering from you guys, correct?
Yes, yeah. Mexican San Andreas wrapper, and then you are going to have kind of a really cool blend, in my opinion. So that Mexican San Andreas wrapper, and then Ecuador Sumatra binder with Nicaraguan Dominican, and a little bit of USA Connecticut broadleaf in the fillers. So
yeah. And Greg Burke, is he with you?
Yes. So he's Greg owns Tip Top in Springfield.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. He said the Firsat, we were talking when you were gone, Nate had asked about the price point, and I said $12 to $15, and he said it's about the same, right? That's
yeah.
So it's in line with the other two blends there.
Yeah, the Firsat ranges between the sizes. MSRP is going to be that, $12 to $15. So $14.50 is the highest MSRP, and that's for the 60. There is a 6x60 in that. 3
sizes of the Firsat. We didn't talk about that,
4.
Right? There is 4. Okay.
There are 4. Yeah, there's a 5x52, a 7x54. That's a big cigar. And then a 5.5x55 and a 6x60, and all are box pressed.
Nice. All right, so Jake and I originally started this podcast back in the day, and then Nate and I have been doing this. Jake's been on, but this is where, and I know we got like a lot of cigar guys, and I'm curious to see where we go with the audience here. But sometimes, when we have a guest like Jake that has a social media following, and obviously some of his accounts and also coworkers get on here. But this is where we go, as we call it, beyond the BS, and we kind of get into a topic here. So smoking cigars, we're drinking whiskey, and this is where, at the end of the night in a garage like this, or in a cigar shop, wherever you are, hanging out with people, smoking and drinking, that you kind of just start chatting.
Yeah.
Start chatting. So this one is, if I can pull this up, sorry.
Breaking it down,
but I was going to actually pull up what I wrote.
You typed up.
Yeah, no, I've lost it, so I'll have to find it. But we try to kind of have some sort of correlation to the guest, what we're talking about in part 1, and with the behind the blends. This is something that Tim Ozgener is doing, but the way I kind of worded it is in the spirit of the behind the blends event, talking about how breaking things down to the basics is needed to tackle the aspects of everyday life. Also, sometimes breaking it down helps us when tackling something that is very important that may involve some planning or some growth. So I looked at this as using like the metaphor of what you guys are doing, and you're breaking, like you have the final product, you have the final goal, you have whatever you're trying to accomplish, whatever you're trying to do, or just get through your daily life type stuff, is that sometimes you have to take a step back and really kind of figure out how you build up to that final product, right? So with the cigars, obviously you're looking at different tobaccos that go into the blend, and you got to like really kind of focus on those individual building blocks of what you're trying to do here with the product. And I think that's something that, you talk about. Last time you were on, we were talking about men's mental health and stuff like that. I think this is something that I also thought that could branch off of that with a little bit more of a
lighter side.
What's that?
A little bit lighter.
A little lighter.
More this is, you take a step back, take the emotion out of it a little bit, at least at first, talking about it. This is the logical side of it, right? This is, how are you going to get from point A to point B with whatever it might be? Where last time you were on, for those that were listening, we talked about a lot of the mental health stuff, but it's like, this is the more logical side of, you want to have this final product of a cigar. Well, it's like, that sounds great and all, but to get there, you have to know what goes into building that cigar, building that
correct
and all that stuff.
And I think you need to be objective as well, and this can kind of tie into everyday life as well, with a lot of people, and I know I'm one to talk about it, but there's so much emotion in a lot of our decisions in those building blocks, whether it's like our life or like how we treat people and like how we go about our normal day-to-day operations, if that makes sense. But sometimes you got to be more we got to be more objective in the decision making and understanding that, like, even if it is a cigar where like this is a project, and even though we're like could be really passionate about it and we may like it, but we got to kind of think of how this stuff is going to be maybe portrayed to other people and how it's going to be received. And you have to leave that emotion out of it a little bit, just enough so that way, if there is something that's bad or is something wrong with it, you know, it's like, hey, we can honestly say, like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Let's pump the brakes. Maybe we have a new release coming out, and it's like, maybe we should maybe tone it back since we have all these new releases coming out that just landed. You know, it's stuff like this that I think that if more people would allow themselves to be objective and use that logic that you're talking about, Steve, I think people would make better decisions when they and leave their ego out of it. I know that was a lot, but if that makes sense.
No, I like that. I mean, no one can ever be, well, I don't say no one. If you have that passion, if you have, like, there's going to be emotion, right? You can never be
completely removed
from emotion and being, 100% objective. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
That's, I think that the only thing typically, I can really think of that you can be completely objective is something involving, mathematics. I mean, that's like, there's no emotion.
Yeah. It's very black and white.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very objective.
Yeah.
You want it to mean, you want it to you want to build something, using, again, not with that background, but I mean, like engineering and stuff like that. Like, there's no, like, you can be creative, but it still has to be sound. You have to be objective on this. You can't be like, hey, wouldn't it be cool? It's like, yeah, it would be cool, but like still mathematically, yeah, like that doesn't work, right? So that's the only thing I can really think of that you can be almost probably as close to 100% objective as you can. But with a lot of this stuff, like, again, using that metaphor of like the cigar, I look at even like what you guys did with Tim Ozgener with his first one, to come out with just one blend. That was
pretty ballsy.
It was ballsy, but again, there's a lot of things that would go into something like that in a business decision. It's like, maybe, and I'm not speaking for Tim, like I said, we'd love to have him on here at some point, but like, there's a good chance that, maybe he just wanted to take it slow. He didn't want to go all in. We're talking about like
your first product out there.
Well, we're talking about this other one, the A.M. Scott, earlier, So again, I know we're still talking about cigars and whiskey, but it's like I don't know what kind of volume they put into it, but it's like if Tim Ozgener goes to Ernesto and says, I want to make 3 blends, put them all out at the same time, and Ernesto's like, all right, well, how much do you want to buy? How many cigars are we making? What blends do you want to do? All this stuff. Like, how long is this project? What's your, like, what is the business plan here? Or do you go, I'm getting back into it and I'm going to do one blend. Let's work on the blend. Let's work on the packaging, the marketing, everything. Let's go. Let's go that way. That's a calculated move. I think that's smart, because if say worst case scenario, it doesn't work, he's not out like the whole project of like the 3 blends where you're at right now. He's taking it step by step, financially, from hitting the market, educating people, to the point now where if you look at the timing of what he's doing, there is some logic there. He's launched his 3rd blend, and as that's hitting shelves, he's now been on the road pumping up his last 2 blends that have good ratings, and now he's like getting, hey, for those of you who don't know, I'm Tim Ozgener from Ozgener Family Cigars, and now you're building those pieces together.
It's his 3rd cigar in his 3rd year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. On top of the other releases that have been released with crowned heads too. It's
from that aspect. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think Tim, I think, we're talking about like breaking it down and kind of the building blocks. I think it works when you have, say, like a guy like Mike Condor, who's been in the industry for, 3 to 4 decades, and he's kind of the guy that I think Tim's very business sound, but I think a lot of us behind the scenes kind of rely on the the experience and the business tactics that come from Mike Conder. He's kind of that myth in like our business. Like, do we see him? Like, do we not really see him? Like, nobody like really knows who he is. And he likes it that way. And I can appreciate that, but he definitely knows. I would not want to mess with him when it comes to the business tactics of, when stuff is being released, what's being released, how much. And he's very
not to take anything away from Tim or John or any of the other team, but I mean, yeah, I think from what I know of Mike Conder, in a sense, obviously not just the end all be all, but he is that, like, I mean, I'm saying this and it's already gonna be so cheesy, I don't even want to, but he's like the man behind the curtain, right?
He is, yeah.
With you guys having the Oz Family Cigars, like he is the Wizard of Oz, like he is
man
behind the curtain, where it's like he doesn't want to be the face.
No, he doesn't.
He's not that person, but he's got he's really savvy with that. So the breaking it down part is I just think that the logical side is, and I know you kept dipping into, and I'm not going down the political rabbit hole here, but I feel as though there's a lot of just always, and just, as of recent times, it's just the logic is thrown out the window. Like everyone keeps saying that, like, I hear it all the time, like, common sense isn't a thing anymore.
Common sense isn't common knowledge.
If people were able to maybe take a step back or find out what the building blocks need to be to get the goals accomplished that they want to get accomplished, I think that it would be a bit more in line with critical thinking of how to get to what you want to get to. What's the effort that you have to, like, what do you have to really focus on to get to what you want to do? Like, whether it be, I bring up, and I know if somebody like Ray or whatever's on here, but it's the same thing as, Jake, you've gotten back into fitness recently. You're really into that part of it. And it's like, when people go all in on certain things, other things might fall off. Well, it's like getting back into like working out.
Yep.
It's not like, okay, so what do you need to do? Some people will be like, oh, I need to do everything. It's like, no. Like,
you can't.
First, you got to do this. And then once you do that for a while, now you do this and you add on top of that. You just can't go necessarily all in on everything, because I think sometimes there is some of the pushing factors on people, like the motivation, somewhat of the, I guess, pressure of going all in.
Of course there is.
And it's like, that's going all in is not necessarily doing 100% right now. It's all in might be like, okay, first you do the 10%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you gotta,
but you focus all your energy on that 10%.
Correct.
That's the point.
But I think that's where a lot of people miss a lot of times.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah. Nate, what do you think?
Well, I think a lot of people make the mistake when they decide to sit down and be like, all right, here's my goal. They try and jump too far ahead. They try and do too much too fast. They try and like, all right, this is what I want to do. And they're like, all right, let's just do that. It's like, well, no, there might be a bunch of steps you have to take in order to get there. And in that process, some of those steps might turn out to be a little difficult, and there might be some resistance and some pushback in order to get through that step. And if you have in your mind that you're just going to, go from A to Z in a very short period of time, and then all of a sudden at C, you start having some resistance. If all you have in your mind is, the end goal, you may give up at that. There's a lot of people that give up at that first sign of resistance, that first pushback, or that first failure. They're like, oh, well, I guess this isn't for me. And they just give up right then and there. I think when you as the topic is breaking it down, you can't see everything from a bird's eye view. Sometimes you have to be at that ground level and just work with what's in front of you. Do what's in front of you. Cool. Now you have something else in front of you. Now you can take on that. And now you can take on the next thing. And when you break things down into smaller, more achievable goals, it makes the end goal more attainable. But some people sit there and be like, I'm 50 pounds overweight. In a month, I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, that probably not healthy.
It's not healthy. Nice. It was that easy and being healthy. Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, okay, it may not be achievable, but like, you can't just sit there and go, oh, I'm going to just start running 10 miles a day in order to lose 50 pounds. Like, well, you try and do that first day, you're not going to walk for a week.
Yeah.
You're going to tear
all. Maybe try a mile a day.
Yeah.
Maybe try a mile a day.
So what's the first thing I can accomplish? All right, get comfortable. What's the first step?
Yeah.
When that starts getting comfortable, that's when you move on to the next. When that becomes comfortable, then you move on to the next. You don't just sit there and say, hey, I want to bench press 300 pounds. I've never bench pressed in my life. And then just all of a sudden throw 3 plates on. No, you're going to hurt yourself if you try that.
Yeah, I did that.
But you have to do.
I feel like country strong like this guy.
But
I hurt myself, but go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
But you have to first set out goals. Like you have to figure out where you are. And then how do you get to that next step? Like, okay, this is where I'm at. What's something that's achievable? Because anytime you come up with a goal, it should be specific and there should be a time frame and it needs to be achievable.
Yeah, so I love it. Yeah.
So if you set a goal with those 3 things in mind, it makes it easier to attain that. So then once you get to that point, take the next, okay, now where do I go? How, what's the time frame? Is it achievable? And then you work from there. You can't just sit there and skip. And that's, I think, a problem a lot of younger people have is they want to get whatever their goal is, whether it be financial success, stardom, fitness, like they want to get to that goal immediately.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go necessarily through the work or through the pain and struggle or failure that comes trying to achieve that goal. And if they haven't experienced failures in the past and grown from them, if every time they fail, they just quit that and move on to the next thing, then they're just going to quit again. And they're never going to hit that. They just give up because giving up is easy.
Well, I think that keeps happening because like what you're saying, Nate, you're trying to, there's some things that you can like kind of skip a step and like get by, but like most things in life, you can't really skip those steps. And I think what you're touching on, Nate, is really important because if you, like, I'll take like my like background, for instance, like, and I love the attainable and the achievable like aspects of what you're saying as well, because somebody said that once in college and that's like really stuck with me ever since, is like, what's tangible? Like if you're trying to do something, what's actually tangible? Like you want to do that, but that isn't really attainable, or, am I saying that right? I think I'm saying the wrong word, but
attainable.
Yeah. Attainable
or
attainable. Sorry.
That's right.
But not tangible. I don't know why I was saying that word, but I think if you're looking at that goal that's attainable, there's all these mini goals that, like we said, like a little bit ago, like if you focus on that first 10%, but you give 100% of the effort to that first 10%, then it's easier to go to that next step. Yeah. And if you keep doing that, then that will compound over time to reach whatever that goal is. But I also learned that from, one of my old bosses, like Corey Gregory. Like he always used to say that, when we were in the gym at Old School, everybody would always, want to get to his point where he's this big, trainer, online trainer, all these workouts, becomes very wealthy, part of the big supplement company, then starts a new supplement company. Everybody knows him, massive followers on every social media account, and all these, successful attributes. And he would always say, yeah, you guys have just seen the last, 4 years.
Right.
I've been doing this for 20 years. And I would agree with you, Nate, and I struggled with it too, like out of school. There's always there's a rush and there's like a fire under your belly to kind of get to that part of life where you're really happy. But there's one really important aspect to that, and that's finding something that not only do you want to attain that goal, but is that something where you can enjoy the process of getting to there? Because if you enjoy the process of getting to there, then it's much easier, and you can focus all your time and effort on those steps because you actually enjoy it, and then you can actually obtain that goal.
Yeah.
And that's what I've like really focused on with specifically this realm of my life, going from Tinder Box to Burn to Crowned Heads and Oz Family Cigars, is kind of in trying to enjoy moments like this where I'm sitting outside of a hotel on my iPad, talking to you guys and talking to the viewers and the listeners, and I'm by myself really, but I'm actually like really enjoying this because we're all connecting. I'm getting to do my job a little bit. You guys are getting to do what you love to do as well, and plug what you guys are doing with your lives. And I think it's really, really cool that we can do this on a regular basis, and that's just going to get even better and better as time goes on. If I'm taking the time to push myself with this whole week where I'm driving to Buffalo on Monday, doing an event Tuesday, trying to see accounts during the day, rushing to get something to eat, mixing a little visit in there from an email from possibly a new prospect account, and then rushing back to the hotel to, get on this podcast and have all my shit with me. And like, maybe there's lights, maybe there's not, maybe I have enough juice, maybe I don't have Wi-Fi, and it all works out. If you kind of believe and trust in that process and put your best foot forward when you're focusing on those small steps and that 10% range that you're wanting to accomplish in that short amount of time.
Yeah, I think a good metaphor for that would, it's just like directions getting to a place, right? It's a step-by-step direction type thing. You're not going to get from point A to point B typically in a straight line and very fast, depending on the destination. And it's always, funny to me when I hear people like you guys were saying, like some of the younger people and all this stuff, all it kept coming to my mind was when the kid in the back seat is saying, "Are we there yet?" I think this is exactly where, and you have the person driving, go to for, my generations before that too. It's usually
MapQuest.
Well, it's usually like, it just pisses off the driver, right? The parent usually.
Yeah.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And it's just like, I'll turn this car around type thing. And it's like, that's exactly what I'm, I was trying like, all right, I'm listening to you two guys speak. You're making these great points, and all I can do is oversimplify it in my mind.
Are we there yet?
Is that the kid saying, "Are we there yet?" And it's like, that's your 20-something-year-old, or the Corey Gregory thing you're talking about. And it's like, no, we're not there yet. We got way more, directions, turns, miles, whatever it might be, to get to the destination. And people do try to rush it, but you do have to break it down, like we're talking about tonight, where it's like you have to break it down to the step by step. The issue in life is that you don't necessarily, like, your old boss Corey Gregory or whoever, like your bosses, like my boss who owns the Tinder Box at Easton. And it's like, you look at him now, it's like 25 years where he's been in this business. And it's like, everyone always says, wouldn't it be great to own a cigar shop? You got the life and all this stuff. And it's like,
right.
He was running this shop, when he was 25, and everyone was like, "Oh, it must be cool." And he's like freaking out,
Yeah.
He was working 7 days a week for like the first 6 years.
Right. That's why he's still constantly stressed.
But there's no like necessarily a playbook. People, read those books, how to be successful, the entrepreneur, all that, like whatever, the fitness books and all that stuff. And it's like, it's not the same playbook for everyone. I mean, I can't speak to this directly, but I think of also like all those parenting books, you know what I mean? I don't have any kids. None of us have kids on this show right now. And it's like all these parenting books, and you talk to a parent and you're like, how much does that help? Sometimes they say, oh, it helped with certain things, what to expect a little bit, but it's like, it doesn't really help. And these things, sell millions of copies. You know what I mean? And it's just like people are always looking for the playbook or the step-by-step directions on how to do something in life. And it's like, it doesn't always work like that. You know, owning a business, having a successful relationship, for Christ's sake. Look at the divorce rate. Look at, you know, the businesses that fail. It's like, I'm not being negative. It's more of that realistic. That's the logical part. You have to take that shot, obviously, and you want to have some educated steps to it, but it's not a slam dunk. Even if you do everything right, like you were talking about, like coming in here, you could have been like, you and I talked on the phone and like, you're like, yeah, no, I'm going to be at the hotel. And all of a sudden you go out on this patio and you're just like, well, there's no Wi-Fi out here. What the fuck?
Right.
You know what I mean? Then you have to try to adapt. You try to figure it out. I mean, you can get there. It's not always ideal though. And I think that's where you really kind of, you have to have that, again, logical mindset and not just get frustrated, turtle up and just be like, well, fuck it, I'm out.
Right. But a lot of people do that and we lose track. We lose, you know, and it's not just young people, it's all ages. You know, it's we're bred to get to a certain point, and I think that humans have a you know, we need fulfillment for one thing. So we're trying to battle this like goofy way of like trying to earn a living and trying to be happy, but also have fulfillment in our lives. And that's really hard to balance and try to gain all three of those, especially at once. But you know, there's a person, Charlie had a really good comment earlier about, you know, self-awareness, bringing common sense. And, you know, these past like few years, especially with like all my windshield time that I have now, like the self-reflection, it's not just like us sitting down in the garage anymore, Steve, and having a cigar and talking about life like this right now. It's, you know, it's me, my own thoughts. And it's really cool because I was never able to do this before, where it's purposefully allowing me to be separated from the rest of the world a little bit. And it allows me to kind of dig into myself a little bit and try to be either a better person or realize like where I'm at and like enjoy the small wins that that like Jonathan was talking about a little bit ago.
Yeah, I like that comment there. Yeah.
That I didn't get to mention is like, you know, once you have the small victory, like when I have a small event and I get, or if we do these, if I get past this week, you know, and I had like a cut and light in Buffalo, had all these visits done, go and pick up Tim and I don't screw anything up, and we go to the Grand Resort and have a great event there, and then go to the Tinder Box and it's a great, you know, reception there. And if that's all done and I get home Saturday, I'm like, man, that could be that was a great week. That's like an ideal, you know, week to be successful. And if I do that compounded over, you know, 5-10 years, you know, I could really be somebody in this industry. And
you're already on your way, man,
as my personal goals. But I think that's goes back to the being objective about my own self-awareness, about understanding like who I am, what I've done, as far as like just reflecting on the day. Did I say something wrong? Could I have been nicer? Did I pop off the handle a little bit with somebody because they pissed me off? Or
I don't ever see that happening.
I know, but like I'm trying, you know, I get better about that. And I think that's what we all lose sight of a little bit, is that, you know, there's all these things that we have to do and we get bogged down with all the finances, getting my insurance switched over, getting the house refinanced, and getting a new truck, and blah blah blah. And then you don't have any time to figure out like who you really are as a person. You're just reacting to life.
Yeah.
And that's when we lose ourselves a little bit, and that's when we become assholes. And that's when you really start failing, because people don't want to fucking deal with it.
It gets stressful. You brought up like the financial side, right? I mean, you think about that, you know, like, you know, Nate's a big proponent of it, and I believe in it. I don't always practice it, certainly, but it's like, don't buy stuff unless you need it. You know, it's like,
right. Easier said than done, but yeah.
Sometimes you need it and you don't have it. So
yeah.
All right. You know, so you know, what do you do?
Yeah. How's that new roof?
The roof's great because insurance covered it, but it's like, you know, you know, like we talked about with like the interest rates and stuff like that. I try to break down logically where it's like, you know, my car is so many years old. We've talked about that before on the show, and it's like, last few months, it's been an expensive year. It's like, you throw in, I've got a over 10-year-old car that's got low miles. So everyone's like, oh, you're good and all that stuff. And it's like, but then everything happened at once. It's like, oh, it needs, some
it always happens at once. It always happens at once.
Next thing you know, it's like, oh, well, don't buy anything unless you need it. It's like, all right, well, so my choices are is either dump $5,000 or more into my car, and it probably like now I need, I'm going to need new tires, but I just spent, it's like, logically you're like, oh yeah, absolutely. I don't want to spend the money on that car. It's like, no, just buy a new car or a used car. It's like, it's like,
I always love that answer.
You know what I mean? Like, so you go through it and you're just like, I'm still doing the best I can with what I can do with that. But it's like when life throws you all those curveballs, that's, I think, where you do have to try to make the most logical decision you are capable and you have the ability to make. And I think that's a big part of it.
Take the back seat for a second. You don't need to go on the fucking trip, or you don't need to you don't need to go out and blow $100 or $500 on like a nice dinner for your anniversary or something like that. You can go get a couple steaks and have them at home and have a nice dinner and don't have the kids there or the dog, and just have your own weekend at home, and it's like we're so integrated with the extravagant things that we lose sight of what we're doing like right now, and we lose sight of our actual goals because we're always trying to reach the financial goal to have the next best thing.
Right. No, absolutely.
But then along on the way, we have these like little, financial hiccups or like different little, if your car gets hit or like something like that. And it's like, you got to be able to adjust and understand that this is the process of how to get back. And then that's really the way that you grow. And I think you'll always come out the better end if you think of that objectively and allow yourself to have a calm mind. And again, I know I'm learning a lot about myself. You can't tell, Steve, because this is all stuff. I'm a way different person than I was 5-6 years ago.
That never stops.
So,
that's the whole thing.
It's just cool to be going through it. And it's cool to go through it and then understand it at the same time, because that's when you can really, really grow instead of just going through the motions and having things happen. And then, like I said, you just react to them and then you don't really get anything out of it.
Well, it's learning from those reactions. I think that's the whole thing, where you talk about, and I'm not necessarily pointing fingers at you, but
you can.
It's people talk about experience, and it's like age doesn't necessarily, I don't think, dictate wisdom and the ability to navigate life. It's more of how you learn from the experience,
your own experiences.
Right. So if you're given the time on this earth to have those experiences, like I just brought up something, it's like the goal is that if you do have like something like the whatever $1,000 of car, or you got to buy a new car and stuff like that, the goal is you want to better prepare yourself for if something like that comes up again, you learn from it. So you're not in the same, you're on your back on the ground type thing. You don't want to get hit with that haymaker again. You want to try to minimize that so you have a little bit better defense on that, and you're better prepared and conditioned for that. And that's where you learn from that part of it.
Yeah. I had a hard time.
Oh, God. And you can respond. You can respond. He said you can respond differently, and you can respond with a fuller tool belt.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You have you.
I like that.
It's another metaphor. It's
that's what the episode should be called, is building your tool belt.
Yeah.
Haven't we done that?
We've done something like that because I used to.
We talk about this. It's the same thing.
Analogy a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean,
not
that
as much
a thing from my previous career where it was like, you're trying to hire people, and it's like, or you're trying.
That was that book, right?
That was the sales one. That was a great one as well. This is more of, some people, it's like you don't give them the right tools to fill the tool belt.
Right.
You give them the tools and they just don't have the tool belt to, the capacity there. So you can give them all the tools, but they just don't have the right tool belt to put things in the right places.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just, it's not as simple always. Not everyone's going to be, well off and have $100,000 in their savings account. You know what I mean? Or like in their like, it's just, that's not the way cards are dealt in the world with people. Not getting political on that, but that is an offshoot into political shit too there.
I will throw a monkey wrench into it a little bit. Like I think about when we were starting the podcast too, this is kind of goes against what we've been talking about for the last hour, but it's, like starting the podcast was kind of one of those things where we were, and I was much younger. Obviously Steve was, younger too, but Steve was a little further along in life. And, for me, like when we were doing when we first started the podcast, we were saying to each other, how do we do this, and I'm just like, well, let's just buy the mic and just do it. It's like everybody's asking for it, why not? And then, you're saying to me like, okay, Jake, but how do we do this? What's the parameters of what we're going to talk about? When are we doing it? Are we doing Wednesday night? Are we doing it every Wednesday night? Because then that's a commitment. I got to quit softball, and I got, it's like, so I get it now. It's, because I'm that guy. Alicia's like, well, let's do this, this, and this, and I'm saying like, okay, well, how are we going to do that? And then, normally it's met with, unfortunately, I think I had the same issue. How you do that is when that's a question to what you're trying to do, it's looked at as like a negative. It's not like,
you don't have to be just because it's not necessarily covering the break. You know what I mean? It's not saying no. It's, and sometimes I think with the personal relationships, it does have to be how you navigate the tough conversations, right? I mean, this is something that it's like, you don't want to just be like, well, and just you flip off, you know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, let's go do this, let's go do that. And you're like, who's paying for it? You know what I mean? Like, how, like, what are you talking about? Because I've had relationships like that in the past. I've had my own with my personal finances or whatever it might be. It's like, you have to do what we're talking about. It's like, hang on, like, I'm not slamming on the brakes, but let's pump the brakes so we can make a good decision here.
Yeah.
Or at least let off the accelerator.
Let off the accelerator might be the better metaphor.
Yeah. Or like Alicia and I, like sometimes we're like, she's like feeling like an itch to go out. I'm like, well, what are we doing? And she, sometimes she'll say, well, I got this one,
Yeah,
and
no, I mean, that's growth as a couple, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's good. And I think that's a metaphor for most of the stuff we're talking about.
I agree.
Especially when you're working with anybody, it's like when you're like trying to create a task or like you're trying to start up a business. It's like, okay, so what are we doing to build this brand new booth at the PCA? Like, okay, well, Jake's like going to work with Adam and get all these towers set up. And then the girls are going to work on putting all the cigars in the bags. And then when the guys are done putting up all the towers, then they're going to join the girls and start putting all this, and it's just like, it's just talking it out and nobody getting like emotional about the shit. It's just like, it needs done,
it needs done in this order to be successful. And then,
and what's the most efficient way to do that? And having like an open discussion about a brainstorm, it doesn't have to be like a fucking hour, but it's like, hey, like this actually thinks, or this is probably a better way to do it. And it's like, oh, okay. Like I see that, it's like having the humility,
smarter, not harder, communicate about like how to do it. I mean, all that stuff. I want to introduce this to the conversation here is, when you're doing, Jake, you're talking about your job and everything else. And even like your relationship. One of the things I feel like when you are trying to be logical and when emotion comes into that is the other side of it is the day-to-day, when the day-to-day becomes a little bit more of a rut.
Monotonous.
Well, monotonous because you got to the point you're at by doing this step-by-step thing. And then you get either complacent, you get bored, you get whatever the other issues are on the outside that's affecting that issue, whether it be your job, your relationship, whether it be what we were talking about, we touched on, Jonathan's out there talking about.
I like Charlie.
Charlie's fun. I like Charlie a lot too.
Charlie's got some good shit. I like him.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so it's like, how do you do that? Like, how do you stay logical? The fact that it's like the reason you got to where you're at is because the step by step. You can't look for, like, you can't get complacent to the point where it's like, I just rest on my laurels here. You know what I mean? To the point where you start sacrificing some of the good that you've accomplished because you're not necessarily looking for the next step, but like you were saying, Jake, like in your career right now, it's like you work hard doing what you're doing. You combine that, from what I'm listening to, of what you were just talking about, how you're growing from the experiences and trying to learn from it. Like, how do you keep going at that pace of keeping it broken down into your daily, your monthly, your weekly, whatever it might be, your check by check list there? Because I think that's the hard part. Because I get like that sometimes. I don't know about you guys. I can assume.
Yeah.
You're focused so much on the next step that you start losing focus of the end.
No, actually,
like you get bogged down.
So focused on the day-to-day stuff of being
that you lose sight of the next step.
You lose sight of the next step. You get in a rut, and now all of a sudden, that's when the emotion gets into it, and you're like, I don't find the passion.
What's your old analogy? Where are we at here?
Yeah, go ahead. You can say it. It's like before you say that, it's like that whole thing. It's like, for you, especially Jake and Nate, you like your job, I like mine, and to the outside looking in, it looks like a fun thing, right? So Jake, you come in, you're like the on the road rock star. You come in, you do the event and all that stuff, and be like, oh man, you got the greatest job. And it's like, in the beginning, any job, especially if you're enjoying it, you absolutely love it, but it becomes a job.
Yeah,
go ahead, Nate.
I was one of those guilty of that when I first got into cigars, and I would travel to go to events. And then when I got my first job at a retail store, I was one of those guys that looked at cigar reps as rock stars in the industry. And was like, man, I want to do that. And then I got my first job as a cigar rep, and I was like, yeah, this
is a lot of work.
Holy shit. What the fuck did I get myself into?
You basically got a job in logistics.
Yeah,
that's basically like that's what I've learned. Like, I'm literally,
everyone looks at it as the only aspect that most people see is doing the events. And
because you just come in and leave.
Yeah, the events are fun. They're a blast to do. You get to talk to customers about your product. You're selling a bunch of stuff. You're hanging out with these people for several hours. Like, that's the fun part of the job.
Yeah.
But no one ever tells you about the windshield time that you're putting in and being away from your family. You leave your house, Monday morning, and you come home Friday night. No one talks about that, especially when you have such a big territory, like what you have, what I used to have. I mean, I know someone that they took a job as a liquor rep here in Ohio, and they had a small territory that was just like part of Columbus. That's all their territory was.
Yeah.
Somehow this person, even though they've worked in the industry for years leading up to that, somehow this person didn't realize that part of that is doing events at liquor stores or at bars at night. And they're like, well, I don't like not being home at 5 o'clock. So they quit.
They just thought it was an easy job.
Yeah, they quit after 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, well, wait a minute. You were interacting with these people. Like, that seems like something you should have maybe asked someone who was actually doing it. Like, hey, obviously I didn't ask that question before I became a cigar rep over a decade ago. I never asked the people I idolized in that industry, like Miguel.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what does your day-to-day look like? How much time are you actually spending with family? I never asked those questions. So all of a sudden I start doing that job, and it's like, oh, this is kind of hitting hard a little bit. Like this, I didn't realize this was involved in doing this job. And you sit there and go, well, this is something I want to do. I'm passionate about it. Like, I want to be successful. And you kind of have those growing pains, especially if you're in a relationship. Like, how do we do this? Because even though I'm the one on the road, we're in this together. So how do we deal with this aspect of our lives now, because now our lives are very different with someone being on the road 5 days a week.
For sure.
You
got into logistics, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it is.
Yeah. And it's tough, and not everyone can do it. And that's why, for the amount of time I've been in the cigar industry, Steve as well, Jake, you as well, like, being someone in this industry in a committed relationship or married, there's not a whole lot of them out there that I've met and seen.
Like, I think
a lot of the ones that I see, they're young, they're single. Like, that tends to be because they don't have someone at home. They're not missing someone at home.
The ones that do have someone at home have really got it figured out, and most of their relationships are very tight, and they understand. I think it also, I mean, like, the unsung hero is the partner.
Yeah.
And I love all this because we are really breaking it down a little bit, because, like, my first big wake up call was my first interview with Altadis in Fort Lauderdale with Paul, like, literally in their office. So, like, we go through the process, and then Paul asks me a question and says, he didn't tell me what he would expect, like, what the day-to-day would be. He asked me what I thought the day-to-day would be. And it's like, like, how do you, it's very, he already knew the answer because he knew that I was coming into it cold.
Well, he's done it before.
Yeah. And so, but he knew I was coming into it cold if I was going to be a rep. And I'm one of those guys. I was at the point where I was like, just, if you give me an expectation, your expectation will be met, but, to him, he wanted me to say it. So I kind of said, I said what I said, and it wasn't exactly what he was wanting to hear. And that was the eye opener to, what's expected to be on the road. Because it's not just being on the road and visiting shops. It's answering emails, it's answering calls, trying to schedule meetings. It's trying to get to those meetings on time because you may have spent too much time at the last meeting trying to get a sale. I feel like I'm constantly, like, asking people, I'm running like 20 or 30 minutes late because I'm traveling an hour from so-and-so's place, and
God forbid there's a wreck on the highway.
Yeah, God forbid there's a wreck, or I got to get gas, or if I'm not, trying to take a piss or something. Like, it's like, but it's all things that I've learned and adjusted with it, and I think it's really, really cool. And that's how I break it down on my day-to-day basis, as far as trying to figure out when I'm traveling and what I'm doing. Like I said, this week is crazy, and I've had this week planned for a month and a half.
Yeah.
So, and that's the building blocks that I kind of took place, because I knew, like, last year when I did almost over 100 events, I learned a lot about myself and the business, because it allowed me to see what I could do right and what I did wrong, and, like, what are the best strategies on how to go places. Like, I'm not going to do an event in Buffalo and try to go do an event in Indianapolis. I am coming back to Columbus, but it's like, go do that event, see some accounts, then pick Tim up in Cleveland, do the event in Youngstown, and then come back home, and at least I'm basically back home, so that's the strategy behind that.
I'll make a comment on that also, because I've been in two industries for the majority of my career, and what always blew my mind in this industry, and hearing from you, Jake, and other reps and stuff like that, and I've seen some of the smaller, when they're hiring people in there, there's no right way to do it, but one of the, I'd say, toughest things to do first is hire the right person, right? So, bring up that interview with Paul, and knowing Paul, I think he's a great leader, he's a great manager, and all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect or anything like that. So it's like, I've seen, and I managed a sales force as well in my previous career, trying to hire someone. It's like, it's tough to find someone. There's like the two major schools of thought, where it's like, you hire a person, you keep saying logistics, that's a big aspect of this, what you're doing, so that you can be successful at that. But also you need to know your product. You need to, this is
break it down. I mean, no, you're dead on.
Bless you. Especially this is that I've seen salespeople come in, and I was in the moving and storage industry before, where it's like, you know, they've been salespeople before, so you think, oh, they know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? They know how to deal with customers. They know how to handle the sales aspects of it, entering in the data, doing the paperwork, doing all this shit, right? Yeah, they do. Yeah. But then they don't give a shit about the product. You know what I mean? And I'll take it off cigars for a second, but it's like, you know, in the moving industry, it's like you put them out there.
Used car salesman.
Well, there's a huge disconnect. Car salesman, yes. Like in the service industry, though, it's the end consumer is being sold by someone that doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right.
And that sometimes can work, but it's way more successful if they have certain, if you can kind of, again, going the two different routes here, if you can kind of diagnose what you're looking for characteristic wise, work ethic wise, all that stuff, I don't know what the better answer is if you find someone that you see as a hard worker and you see the mental capacity, the tool belt we were talking about before, that you can fill them with the right tools. It's more effort on that aspect of the hiring company, right? Or the manager or whatever it is. And because there's so many working cogs, it's like you can bring someone in there and it's like, oh, you failed. It's like, you didn't tell me how to do this. You just said, hey, this is your territory. Here's your list of stores. Go out there and do it. That to me is very weak leadership. It's you can't start with tough love, in my opinion. On the flip side of that is that you hire someone that's done sales. The issue with that, I had personal experience with that, and now I see it from my vantage point in the cigar industry, is that they're gone.
Right.
As soon as they have another sales opportunity that's going to be something they either think has more potential or they think that they have more interest in.
But they don't even have the right tool belt. I mean, that's the thing is like
they have the right tool belt for the logistics side that you're talking about. They know how to do that part, but when they
that's just one tool. That's just one tool.
Sure, but when they walk in the door, they don't know how to get to the end consumer.
I think the good metaphor would be that picking somebody that already has the tool belt and you give them the tools. You know, they have to have the capacity.
It's tough to foresee that, but yeah, I agree with
it. It is very tough to foresee it. And what's the question? What's the questions how do you hire like that? And like my always thing was like at Burn when we were hiring is like, I think the tool belt is being a good person. You know, if people can be respectful and they come in and they're dressed well and, you know, you'll get those ones and twos that are, you know, they put on a face for that one time and then you hire them and then they're fucked. But, you know, I would like to say that probably 80% or 90% of the time, if you find somebody that is a good person, and we can all tell who is genuinely good and that is excited and passionate about it, then you can give them the tools and really, you know, give them the building blocks to be successful.
Well,
if somebody's just looking to make money, that's not a good enough answer. I hate that fucking answer.
No, that's terrible. No, that's everyone wants to make money.
Yeah, duh.
They want to,
but if you can have somebody that has already dealt with a lot of people that you know that they can deal with, like I guess in our area, you know, that is a good person, can greet people, and you guys at the Tinder Box gave me all those tools. I didn't know that this was going to be.
Yeah, you had the retail side of it, the customer experience, but you were good at that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff mixed in there, Steve, and like I would like to touch on it because it's really important I think it goes beyond like just the cigar industry. Like when you say
that you're breaking it down right now?
I am.
Go ahead. Sorry. Couldn't resist.
No, I think it's really, and it's great when you can find somebody that has that capacity and the right tool belt that already has being polite, asks people how they are. Like what's the old, wasn't there like a famous interview from some big company that said instead of hiring, he was like split between two directors. and the CEO was split between two, or whoever, a boss was split between two prospects, and he took him out to dinner. He didn't even interview him. And he basically chose one guy, obviously, and didn't choose the other guy. And the guy that didn't get the job asked, well, why didn't you choose me? I actually have a better resume than so-and-so. Well, the boss said, well, but you treated the waiter like shit.
Yeah.
And the other guy,
I've heard that one.
Yeah.
You know, so like that, it's like it all comes back to you are going to be more successful when you're going to be more successful in life, your relationship, your job, if you are a better person as a whole, and when you can be polite. And that's what you guys, I mean, I was polite before, but you guys gave me those tools at Tinder Box with, you know, first someone coming in and asking, you know, hey, how are you doing today? First fucking question, always. And then, are we new cigar smokers, or are we experienced, you know? And then you can start this whole other kind of conversation about that. And then, you know, the fact with Tinder Box, with the unique experience there, like you guys have to actually sell the cigars because they're behind the glass. And it's like that all created a huge experience for me. And I would also say Ryan as well. Everybody that's worked at the Tinder Box at Easton, I think, can say the same thing. And when I went over to Burn, that was the same exact thing that happened when I trained my humidor staff. And then by the end of the 3 years that I was there, the humidor staff was so great with people, and their people skills were so good that they were making more money than the bartenders, because they were able to be helpful. They were nice. They were approachable. They were adding that extra element of service. And when you tie that all in together, and then you can go out on the road and do your thing, you're a freaking winner, because you already have all those tools in your tool belt to be a good person. And when you meet a shithead owner at a retail store that doesn't really like you just because they don't carry your product, and then they meet you for the first time, you can make them fucking like you, because you already have those tools in your belt, because you're a good person. You greet people, you can ask them how they are, you can get integrated. And the difference is you can actually give a shit about what they're talking about, and you can listen to them.
Yeah, you think you make great points, and it sucks that it's that difficult to.
It's so difficult, dude.
Find that, you know, that people actually just,
because it's people's egos. They don't want to break anything down. They don't want to. Yeah. They don't want to break people's emotions down, and they don't want to talk about their intricacies of their life, because they're afraid someone else is going to use it against them. And that's just complete bullshit. Like, have a little bit of humility, have a little bit of honesty, and just be a good person.
Well, I don't think you always have to hide agendas. I mean, I think with your kind of, you know, skill set.
But I'm saying a lot of people do that because they don't want to get hurt. They don't want to get fucked over, and so many people get fucked over all the time. So then they feel like they can't let other people know what the hell is going on.
Right. So what I was going to say, going off of what you said, and kind of going down that road, is the fact that you have to ask questions.
Yeah.
And with you talking about, obviously it's easier said than done, I guess, for some people. It shouldn't be, but it's oversimplifying. Let me say it that. You have to be genuine in the fact that you ask questions, genuinely listening.
Because you care.
Well, just listening to the answers.
Yeah.
Because like you say, in personal life, like with like relationships and stuff like that, like you can't force anything. You know what I mean? No. Like you have to have.
I mean, there's ways to, but yeah.
You have to have tough conversations as you're going through your personal relationships with those people. On the business side, whether you're in sales or not, but especially in sales, yes, you're trying to make a sale. That there's no, like, you don't. When I see salespeople be like, you know, I'm not no pressure salesperson. You know, if it doesn't work. It's like, don't go too far down that road either.
Yeah, because then you're lazy.
You're obviously salary. Is what I assume.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
But also the commission one, I don't want you to be the other guy that's, you know, like you know, kind of like a used car salesman, where it's like, you know, how do I get you in this today type thing. It's, I'll tell you how you can get me in that car today. You're going to say no. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like the text messages I get. It's like, hey, this is Jake with so-and-so. Like, I was looking at your place on 4476 Rangel Place. what would it take to have you move? And I'm like, fucking $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't write back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't know my answer. You don't want to know my answer because it's like,
I always ask them how they got my number.
It's whatever. But
yeah, sorry.
The genuine, you have those conversations, you ask the questions you want to know, but also I don't think you need to necessarily go that far off the other way where it's like, no, I do have a purpose of being here,
right?
Whether it be with a person, with a client, with whatever it is, you do like, no, this is very simple to me. I'm asking these questions because I want to know how your business works. I want to know what you want out of life. Whatever the arena is, I want to know all these things because, yes, I am interested in, reciprocating of some sort of relationship, business or personal. But it's like, if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But you can't just oversimplify it and just be like, this is what I have to offer. Does it fit? It's like,
right.
They don't necessarily know because you've sold yourself short because you didn't actually, as we're talking about, you didn't break it down to a point of like, all right, let's figure this out. Like, obviously I'm here to sell cigars or whatever it is, and you don't carry our brand, and some people just turn you away. Like, no, I don't carry Crowned Heads. I don't carry Ozgener.
Yeah.
Like, well, clearly that's why I'm here.
Well, I always ask, like, have you tried our stuff? Like, can I sit down and have a cigar with you?
What does well in your store?
Like,
what brands go well? Like, what kind of cigars are mild? Like, are you a destination? Like, start asking questions. I'm trying to find out.
You're like big. They sell big sizes. Yeah.
Dude, it's a first date.
It's big. You're fucking.
That's all it is. It's a first date. If all you go in, you're trying to impress them. You go in there like, oh yeah, you're gonna want to be with me. I'm just gonna like overcompensate, do that guy or whatever. It's like that's not going anywhere. That's the last.
I got washboard abs.
Yeah,
I can do all this stuff for you, but
I make all this money. I do all this stuff. It's like whatever. Fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like same thing. You go into a client or whatever else, and it's like I just want to know what does well for you. What do you want?
It's like
those are the kind of questions. As someone in retail sales, those are some of the questions I ask almost every single customer that comes in.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
what makes you a good host?
Well,
and a good salesman.
When you're going into a store that whatever widget they're selling, if they have several hundred options, it can kind of be overwhelming to the consumer. So you start breaking it down. First you have to ask, like, is there anything I can help you find? Or are you looking for something particular? Like, because some people want to walk in and browse and find, they may be looking for something specific, or they're looking for something that kind of jumps off the shelf at them. And you got to give them that respect. You can't sit there and just hover over everyone, because then that can be a turnoff. But then, if you follow up, or if they come to you, like, yeah, I am looking for, I could use some help. I'm like, all right. Well, what, and these are questions I do all the time. Like, well, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for something like this. Okay, let me show you what I have. And you said specifically you're looking for something with this type of profile. Here's some of my options. What are you looking at spending today? Like, how much are you looking for on this?
What's the budget
product?
Here?
Because
what's the budget here?
You might get someone that comes in and they're looking for a $20-$25 item. You can't sit there and say, well, this one's, $250, but let me tell you, it's fucking amazing. It's like, well, I don't have the money to spend $250 on
it's awkward
that.
At that point.
It does become awkward. And I mean, I've had times though where I've had people like, hey, can you help us? Do you know anything about this type of product? I'm like, yeah. And we literally walk through an aisle that is all that product to go into the high end aisle.
Yeah.
At that point, I never ask price whatsoever.
Right.
Because that obviously, when that person's looking at stuff that's already, five.
Well, because you're observing at that point, you already know.
Yeah, they're already looking at something that's 5 to 10 times over average. Obviously, they don't give a shit about price. They're more concerned about experience at that point. And so, like, I'll then sit there and ask those questions and give them as much information as I have available to me. I don't like, and because I've seen it in multiple industries, I don't like people who lie to get a sale.
Correct.
Like if you have to lie to get a sale, you're a bad salesperson.
And I hate bad service. I can't stand it anymore.
And so like I sit there and I work with these people and I spend time. Sometimes I get the complaint that I have spent too much time with customers. But like I'll spend time with that customer.
But how can you know what kind of thing to say to an employee? How the fuck would you know what the guy or woman is going to spend in that sale? You could mention something completely out of the box and get a $500 sale on this crazy wine that's back there in the corner. How would you know?
Yeah.
Or it could be a dud, but that's the chance you take. It doesn't matter.
Well,
like it's like,
so what I've experienced though is there have been several customers where I've worked with this customer and we've started out, medium, middle of the road, and they end up liking the recommendations. So then they come back and want to work with me and they're like, hey, I just had a guy last week. He's like, hey, you helped me last time. I'm buying something for my daughter's wedding this weekend.
Yeah.
And this is what this is what I'm looking for. And that person came in later that week and got something else again. And I get these people that come in, and I know Steve does too at Tinder Box. You get those people that come in and they're like, yeah, last time this person helped me. Is that person around? Like you made a good enough experience with that person. They want to come back and do business with you again, not just that business, but that person in particular. But that's all because of how you approach it. You weren't
and
pushy.
That's a classic statement at Tinder Box. Like all you guys have like
all the time if someone else is working, it sucks.
Yeah, it happens. And but what kind of
is Nate here? No, he only works Friday nights and Sundays.
But what kind of a testament? What kind of a testament to Tinder Box and the people that work there to have literally each individual employee that's there have a certain group of people that they've created a rapport with just by giving them a good recommendation and actually hearing them and actually giving good service.
I think you found that, right? I mean, that's going to be the case. I've heard that from, certain reps also in your industry is they buy from you, you leave, and all of a sudden sales go down.
Right.
It's like, well, I was buying from this. I really like this person, whatever it might be, it takes to step back. I think also though, it is, talking about this from someone that's been in a managerial role before, it is
and still are.
Well, okay, still like with that. No, but I'm saying like that's how do you approach it? Do you say to an employee and say, hey, I just want like sometimes you spend too much time with customers. No. Sometimes, I need you to be aware of the bigger picture sometimes.
That's what you told me.
Like, is there someone waiting at the register waiting to check out?
This is where it's like you need to be able to be like, hey, you know what? Real
Give
quick,
me 1 second.
I gotta go help this person. I want if you can keep browsing.
And you're really good at that. And that's how
well, I'm just saying that's again, these are those communication issues. This is that leadership. This is the you don't necessarily, it is to the topic at hand, breaking it down to be like, I'm not going to, you need to do this. It's like, well, fucking tell me what you want a little bit. I'm not looking for a micromanager, but it's like, hey, so like sometimes you get a little bit of that, like we call it like tunnel vision where you're just helping this person. We're not staffed enough for the workload. So I need your head to be a little bit more on a swivel. So you may have to break away from that customer. Don't say, all right, you're on your own. Just be like, hey, give me a second real quick. I got to go help. I'm going to go ask if they need anything real quick while you continue to browse.
Well, Nate definitely likes doing that because Nate likes servicing the person.
Absolutely.
And
that's what I'm saying. I think
you dig into them. And I love watching it, but I see where Steve's coming from.
Well, and to that,
but I also can't have 3 more people come in, and then it's like, well, now they're backing up. Now someone leaves. Someone's like looking around.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I get it.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's an awareness of your surroundings type of a thing, and how you handle and navigate. And that's the tool belt, right? You're very that's
one more tool. That's one more tool.
Take too long with someone, or you take too like.
I think sometimes
you're very good at communicating with customers, and when they need and they ask a lot of questions, you're asking questions. These are all great things, all I need from you is just to kind of every, however often, like keep your head on a swivel,
keep scanning,
and don't ignore people coming in. If it starts, be aware that you can do this without offending the customer you're with. And if you do you do, but if the store is empty, do it, like spend an hour with them. But if, it's kind of like with you, Jake, you're in a client, you're at a meeting or whatever, you want to prioritize that. But if someone keeps blowing up your phone, they call you twice, they send you a bunch of text messages, you're like, I'm sorry, can I want to, let me step out real quick. This person might need something because they've called me 3 times.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And don't tell me, oh, they're super needy, this is pain in my ass, because then I'm going to look at it as like, so when I call, if I text, am I a pain in his ass? Like, you know what I mean? Like, just be simple. Like, just hey, they're calling me. I got to make sure. Yeah, be logical. Exactly. Absolutely. Keep it simple, stupid type thing. It's like, I don't want to, like, I'm sorry. I want to continue this. I want to make sure this is an emergency. Can I just step out real quick?
And that's also the communication skills that you were talking about.
So easy.
Yeah. I want to go back to like one.
Well, for me,
go ahead.
I was going to say, for me in that situation, that's one of the big differences between Tinder Box and Carfagna's for me is if I'm at Tinder Box and I'm helping a customer and like all of a sudden more customers are coming in and I've already engaged with one, like I can see other customers have come in. I can break off and engage with it. Like, yes, like continue to browse. Like, let me know if you need anything. I'm going to go check on someone else. At Carfagna's, because of how big that space is and the number of aisles that we have,
you lose.
I can't see the entire floor. Sure. So I may be in an aisleway working with a customer, and meanwhile, there's 2 people waiting to check out. And if it's early in the day, there may not be a whole lot of people there, like Steve said, to be able to check out. So I may not realize that there are other people waiting just because I can't see it. It's not because I'm trying to ignore them or I'm trying to focus all my time on the customer I'm with. It's just what I can see. Like if I was 7 feet tall and could look over top of all the shelves, I could sit there and say, "Hey,
do that."
You need like a monitor with all the camera angles on your hip.
Let me grow 1.5 feet,
or just have someone either be better staffed, or have someone that is in the leadership role or whatever, or just a teammate thing. They can be at your level and just like they realize things are stacking up. And you're the one that's socially aware, and you look around and you're like, where's Nate at? Hey, and you say, hey, Nate, can you go grab this? No egos involved.
Yes.
I just started working with, can you, you've been with them for a little while. Is it, excuse me, miss, man, sir, whatever. Can I steal him for a second just so we can go check out a couple people? Vast majority, like 99% of people would most likely be like, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. I'll just keep, it's just, again, there's teamwork, there's all that stuff. There's it's not as complicated as it
shouldn't be as complicated as what some people treat it
as it can be, right?
I do want to go back to one thing that I absolutely love, like as far as service goes. I love it when we're doing an event and like, I think we forget that like cigar shops are kind of like I think I said this on the last podcast, but it's kind of like a hardcore gym or like a big gym with like big people and heavy lifters. Like it's intimidating because it's kind of this like realm that not a lot of people know, especially with Tinder Box at Easton and probably even Carfagna's, that people are coming in and they're looking for those recommendations because they don't know, so they're already nervous, they're already anxious. If you can make that experience a lot better, that will always show your humility as a person and always get those sales because you can adjust with the customer. But I think I like it at events where, if someone comes in and they're like either in a grouchy mood and they look at me just as like a sleazy salesman, it's like, hey, how's it going? My name's Jake with Crowned Heads and Oz Family Cigars. And they're like, yeah, I'm just like perusing. I'm like, well, okay, that's great. Like, these are our deals tonight. If you need anything, let me know. And I'll wait like maybe like 30 seconds. And I jump back in and say, well, what do you normally like to smoke? And that was something that like I got from Steve, like real quick, was that like, as soon as you do that, like people, as soon you start that conversation, because they want to tell you everything that they smoke. They're like, oh, I've smoked Opus. I smoke Padrones all the time. I like Andalusian Bulls, Cubans. And I love that with like Crowned Heads and Oz Family Cigars, because even sometimes like we're lucky enough to where, you know, I can mess around a little bit with our samples. You know, I'll just say that on air. But
fair.
You know, it's fun for someone to say like I only like Cubans, and I'll take like a band off of a Mil Diaz Habano or something, and I'm like, this one's on me, dude. You gonna sit here and have a cigar with everybody and have like a cocktail or something? Yeah, that's what I was planning on doing. Okay, can you just smoke this cigar for me and just get back to me, you know, before you leave? And it's like fucking clockwork every time. Like everybody loves it. You know, it's like, man, what is that? Is that like a?
Dude, that is so classic drug dealer, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
First one's free.
First hit's free.
First one's free. And then it's $19.99 after that.
That's right. Every hit after that, man.
Yeah, but then I mean, I don't know, but I'm not being sleazy. It's just like here's a cigar, like try it out, man. Like,
once
come
again,
on.
You're asking questions. You don't hide your agenda. You are a salesperson.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it's like I'm not gonna just. I'm giving you a cigar because I hope you like it. Like that's.
And I don't want to just sit there on my ass and like not talk to anybody either. Like,
oh God,
you know, like I'm there to have.
Yeah.
I'm there to have fun with everybody else. Like that's what I love about this so much, and I've gotten that a lot from Miguel too. Is that I don't know how Miguel does what he does. Like I thought Rocky like traveled a lot, but Miguel is literally on the fucking road like probably almost 300 days a year. Like people don't know that. Like it is nuts.
Yeah.
And when I talk to him about that, he's like, I do this, Jake. I've done this for 21 years because I love this shit. And it's like,
and he has a partner that actually
that too.
That's amazing, you know.
Totally.
Genuine to the relationship.
Betsaida, if he didn't have her, he wouldn't be Miguel. But I mean, and I wouldn't be Jake without Alicia either. But
right.
You know, when it comes down to it, I just love that answer because like that to me, no matter what type of level of like financial success you can think of, like you've fucking made it, bro. Like you've you know, you're in your 40s, you're happy, you love what you do, and you're willing to work hard because you love doing it. And that is so hard to come by anymore. And I've tried to, you know, on long drives and stuff, I've tried to get that into my own kind of mindset. And I've also added this job has kind of, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent a little bit, but I just want to kind of tell my story about my reflections on myself that this brought back the coolest part about who I thought was like me was like getting amped up for like football games or like big track meets or like whatever. And it's like when I'm tired and I'm down and I'm making like a big run to wherever and I have a 4-hour drive and I'm going somewhere for an event, like I'm like pumped up in the car and like listen to rock music and stuff. And like, I'm ready to go. Like, and the energy's high. Like you got to keep the energy high. And I know like other people, like I know Tyler and Dwayne and Eric and like Tyler with Espinoza and Eric with LFD and Dwayne's in Indiana with Oliva. But like when we're all together, like doing like these big multi-vendors, like I'm sure like I'm probably annoying to them because I'm just like, you know, amped up and like ready to go with these events because it's fun. And I got that, like, I didn't realize that until I did events with Miguel. And I realized I'm like, I can take literally what I did like 10 years ago, you know, with high school football and like even with college football and make like my big games, these big events. Mm-hmm. And it's fun. It's so fucking fun that way, man.
It's a mindset, man. It's frame of mind, you know?
It's really exciting. So it's, yeah.
I love it. All right. Now's the time.
Jonathan, time us.
Jonathan hasn't done that in a while.
Yeah, he did say keep it under 2 hours.
No, he wanted part 2 to go 2 hours.
He did. Well, it did. It's pretty close.
Nope, not yet.
We got another half hour, but it's
we're close. And he says he loves that mentality and don't lose that, which is again going back to what I had brought up earlier. When you're doing what you're doing, how do you keep that going? You know what I mean?
Can you put his comment up there about the good rep hire thing?
Sure.
I think that's really cool. Because that's what I did at Burn.
Here, you go ahead and do that.
A good rep hire for me from Jonathan Herring. Number 1, good person. 2, knowledge of the premium cigar industry. 3, work ethic. I can teach everything past that. I couldn't say it any better, even if I tried. I mean, I know I'm not a manager anymore, but like that's what I did at Burn. And there was onesie twosies there that kind of fooled me in the beginning, but for the most part, like after I left, I think that I would like to say that place was running smoothly and we had a good staff. So took 3 years, but
and I kind of relate to that too with my current role. So most of my current role, my responsibility is selling wine to customers, and I've never sold wine before in my life.
Yeah. But now you're getting into it, which is cool.
I drank wine, but I never sold wine. I drank liquor. I never sold liquor. I smoked and sold cigars, but that's such a small part of the business. It doesn't even matter. But what made the company like me wasn't my knowledge of the industry. It was being a good person, but also my ability to talk and work with customers, to be able to ask the right questions and interact with customers to help them find, what it is they were looking for. And I think that was important because my boss knew, all right, he's got the background to be able to work with customers. I can teach him the wine.
Yeah.
He knows enough about certain liquors. He can learn that on his own. I can teach him the other stuff to make him better in that area.
But you already had the customer service down. That
was the key. That was the key for my position.
You already had the tool belt.
Yeah. I had
the tools.
Yeah. I had the tools. I just needed the belt for that particular position.
Yeah. Love it. I love it. This has been really good, guys. I think.
I agree.
Like for me, the whole idea of breaking it down, I think sometimes we have a tendency that when we create a goal or something that we want to accomplish, our eyes get a little too big, our view gets a little wide, and we try to accomplish everything right away.
Yeah.
And if we don't get the results we want, there are some people that then just shut down and like, all right, that wasn't for me. It's like, well,
right.
Did you actually give it a fair chance?
Or did you put all your focus into it?
Yeah.
Were you focusing too much on the end goal and not focusing enough on that small win?
And I think that's what's important is you can't sit there and start out in something and immediately think you're going to get to the top in a short period of time. It's like, no, you have to sit there and go, where am I at? What do I need to work on now? What's something that I can do better now? And then you work on that. And then it's like, okay, now that I got that, now what I do? And I think that helps because anytime you accomplish those small, quickly attainable goals, it creates this snowball effect that it just keeps picking up steam because those little wins energize you. They motivate you. They get you excited and make you
have self-gratitude.
It makes you love what you're doing. And so anytime you hit those achievements, anytime you get a customer that comes back in and gives you a compliment that says, hey, last time I came in, you recommended this. I absolutely loved it. What's next? What do you got for me this time? Like, and I tell people when they tell me that, I'm like, I appreciate you telling me that because it means a lot to me. Because anytime I make a recommendation, like, I think you're going to like it and I hope that you do, but you actually coming in and telling me that it was a good recommendation and that you did enjoy it, that helps me. That makes me realize, okay, I do know what I'm doing. I do know what I'm talking about. That's a win. And it helps boost your confidence and also how you see yourself.
Right.
Because sometimes we sit there and, you know, day in, day out, it's just, you know, people asking for the same things and you're ringing people out or you're making recommendations, and it can get tiresome at times because it just feels like it's the same thing over and over. But when you get those people that actually compliment you on what you've done, like that right there can completely change your outlook for the day. It can have a huge impact on how you treat the rest of the week or the rest of the month or whatever. And I think sometimes we rely too much on other people for that. And we need to actually rely on ourselves for that as well. So that's what I mean by breaking it down. Like, what can I accomplish? Okay, I can do this. And then when you do that, take a brief moment to actually celebrate the victory. Like, this is what I want to do. I did it. Yay for me. Cool. And then you go on to the next thing.
Yep.
But sometimes you need those little wins and those little accomplishments in order to keep that momentum going. So that way you don't let off the gas, or like some people do, just completely hit the brakes and shut everything down.
I'm gonna add to yours, and this doesn't count on his time there, Jonathan, but
I'm done.
Oh, sorry, but you do the things that you do though in that job, and this is, you can apply this to a lot of things though, Nate. If you relate,
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Jonathan. Sorry.
You do everything you did, and they come back in and they say, "So you helped me last time. You recommended this. Wasn't my favorite."
I had that happen the other day.
The thing is that I get the great point of celebrating the wins, but also I think that if someone comes in and they say, "I didn't really like it, and this is why," or you ask, like, what didn't you like about it? Like, how did it miss? And you can use that as kind of a positive critique, which I think is that's where you ended your comments there of like, you shut down. A lot of people just look at it as like, oh, well, fuck me then, right? I don't know what I'm talking about. Like you obviously, it's like, no, like you keep working at it. You know what I mean? You keep working with that relationship, much like Jake with your job. You keep going back in, you're like, hey, it didn't really sell that well. It's like, okay, well, so that the Mil Diaz didn't sell well. Like, what's selling well? And they're like, well, this and this. And you're like, well, Mil Diaz is better than both of those. It's like, not really the best tactic there. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, all right, well, what they say, so you can always work with it.
Well, I think my job interview process, like before I became a rep, was like a great tester and teaching tool to being able to do that with a smaller brand. I'm trying to like sell myself to a bigger company or any type of interview that I'm going after. And it's like, well, you're young. Like, what's your experience? Like, well, I've been like 2.5 to 3 years at Tinder Box and retail, and I actually learned a lot. How is all those, how can I identify all those things to but all that trial and like tribulation that I had to deal with, and I love all of them, but with Paul, with Altadis, and, like even my, little things with Burn, like becoming the GM and like even interviewing.
It's not a little thing, by the way.
Yeah, I know. But just all the things that I had to do to kind of get to this point was like a really good, I think, testament to building the character that I needed to be able to go into lounges on a day-to-day basis and go into a place that doesn't sell our cigars and say, hey, like, this is actually kind of what I've done. Like, just because you say no the first time doesn't mean I'm not going to be back, So,
yeah.
And I think that like I think as soon as we are allowed to allow ourselves to identify, instead of being upset and pissed off about like the issues that we have and the problems that we have, and we can actually look at them as building blocks to something bigger, I think that's when we can actually like look at ourselves and say, man, I am fucking growing. Like, this is like a really good time to be me. Like, this is a good time in my life because I can actually identify those things, those problems, and say like, well, this is actually just getting me to my next step. And then there's going to be another problem. Instead of being down about that, I can say, well, when that next problem hits, like, I don't know what that's going to be, and it's probably going to fuck me, but like, it's going to get me to that point, that next point where I need to grow and be a better person, So it's really, yeah. really humble right now, man. I really feel
I like
great.
It sounds great, man. I love it.
When I like what you said there, Steve.
I like that energy.
I like what you said there, Steve, because it, real quick, it reminded me of a customer experience I had this week where I had a customer come in and they're like,
I love how we're past the closing remarks. We're like, just like going there.
Last time you recommended
staying on closing remarks. This point here.
They said, yeah, last time you recommended 6 bottles. There was one that we didn't like. Right. And initially,
5
I'm like,
6 is great, man.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Shit.
Man. And I was like, well, do you remember what it was? And so they started looking through their phone and they found a picture and like, yeah, this is the one it was. I'm like, I'm glad you took a picture of that because I can see the other bottles I recommended. Mm. But now, and sometimes I tell people, like, and we say it in the cigar industry too, like, take a picture of the ones you like. But then one of the things I've actually picked up from my boss at Carfagna is also take a picture of the ones you don't like. So that way, when you come in, let me know, like, hey, I didn't like this one. Okay. I know what makes that one different from the others.
Makes sense.
Now I know, because I can go more off of what you don't like than what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Because sometimes if you just go off what they like, sometimes you can stretch that a little too far. But if you know what they don't like, it helps narrow it down a little bit more. And when I said that to that customer, they're like, well, that's really helpful. Like, I'm glad you told me that. So I'll do that next time. And it showed that customer that, like, every time they come in, I want to get them the best product that they like or what fits within what they're looking for. And customers appreciate that. And when you do that, whether it be customers or in relationships, when you sit there and tell someone like, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, that person realizes, okay, maybe next time when we're planning a vacation, I don't sit there and try and fill the day with a bunch of shit or just, sit there and go, hey, we're going to just go. There's not going to be any itinerary. We're just going to go. And that stresses the other person out. It's like, okay, you learn from the positives and from the negatives. And sometimes you learn from the negatives more because now you know what not to do.
Absolutely. Great conversation tonight. I keep going back to, we're talking about experiences and stuff like that and how you grow off of your past and your successes, some of your failures and all that stuff. But, as far as, breaking it down, getting back to some of the basics there, I do have from my previous career was something that I really learned a lot from. And that was, again, in the moving and storage industry. And bear with me just for, I guess, hopefully, 457 or under. I don't know what the bet is here. I saw 457 from Jonathan.
That's for you.
I know. So when I first started as a mover, I was a trainee, right? They had this down, and later on they took this away because apparently it was like they wanted to train everyone in a day in the warehouse and kind of a hypothetical move situation, right? When I started, I had I forget how many pages it was, but you had to have your trainer, you were a third person on the 2-man crew, and you had to have the trainer check off initial off every like of the basics of how to do this, how to fold a pad, how to use a dial, how to do all these things, right? How to do paperwork, all this stuff with the customer. And it was very basic. On the sales side of it, when I was in management, it was the same thing. We had a training program where it was like the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, first you're going to listen in a headset while they do the job. And then you're going to, know how to do this and check off the things that you've learned how to do, how to enter things in the system while you're talking on the phone, or if you go out on site, all this stuff. And there's a process with learning the basics, right? When I was a trainee, I was paid minimum wage until I filled out that packet and got it filled out from a trainer. And then I got to the normal wage, which back then it was not anything close to what it is now, right? But there are these steps there that I looked at, and it's funny how you become the next generation, right? And you look back at these people, they just want to come in, they want to learn in a day.
It happens real fast.
And the company, which is one of the reasons that I did not see eye to eye with them anymore, is that it was like they wanted to do this 1 day, maybe 2 day thing, and then they get thrown out on the trucks, and you're just like, that's not the trade. That's not that's not the job. I go back to what you were saying, Jake, when you had that interview, and then someone asked you, and God love Paul, I like him a lot. I think he's very smart, very savvy, successful,
smart.
And
Paul's very smart,
but he's very, very great at that. But as an applicant, as someone that's in that interview, and they ask you like, what do you consider, like, what do you think the day? How was the question? What do you do on a day-to-day basis in this job or whatever? And you're clueless.
Yeah.
So I can bring up at this point is like one of the things that I found successful as a new hire, a new person in an industry, was having guidance in the beginning on the very basics of what the nuts and bolts of this position is, because I don't know how your business, especially if I'm already in the business like you were, I don't know how your company works. So I got to ask you, like, I can answer that question, but what's your training program like? I want to know how I can get the nuts and bolts of how it works for you guys. What's the training curve? What is all this? Because in the past, I've been most successful as we knock out the basics, and you kept harping on logistics. Like, what is all that stuff? Also, what is the follow-up to make sure that I'm doing what you guys want me to do? Because I can tell you all day long of what I think this should be. And if my ideas don't align with yours, we're at a crossroads here.
Yeah.
And
I'm not getting hired.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I answer this not the way you want to, or whatever it is, but I would want to know, I've been successful when I broke it down to the basics. The same things can go into a relationship. If you go into a relationship or that first date we were talking about, and all you're trying to do is get your needs met at all costs without any concern for the other party, it's not going to work. It might, you might find that unicorn and it works, but it's like, no, you have those conversations. Like, what's important to you? What do you want out of this? This is what I want out of it. Oh, we don't align. It doesn't work out. I'm glad we found out now. But I think that you have to really break it all down to, again, the basics to the fundamental, the logical sides of things, the logical side of things, so that then you can all right, we already got the basics covered. Cool.
Yeah.
Now's the real tough part of how do we actually do this successfully together, whether it be an employer, employee, a significant other, whatever it might be. But it's having the basics covered from the beginning, having the conversations, going over the basics of whatever the task at hand is in life. And then I got all the tools. I have the right tool belt to fit the tools that you need. And you're actually also reciprocating what I need from an employer, from a significant other. That's already done.
I find it funny that it's back asswards.
What's that?
I find it funny that it's back asswards anymore. Like how we're talking about.
And that was the other thing that I learned from my previous career, is that I would, as a supervisor, a manager, or whatever my role was, even at the GM role, I would still go out on site to give on-site inspections, which they all knew what it was out of 50 points, the basics. Yeah. And when I go out to a site of movers that had been there for 5 years, and it's like,
who else did that? Did that?
Well, everyone was supposed to, but it's like, you scored a 37 out of 50, and these are the fundamental basics of doing your job. Yes, you didn't have any damages. Yes, the customer's happy. That's great. But you failed to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
You break that down logically. It's like, yeah, make the customer happy, make sure there's no damages, make sure it's gone, you do the job successfully. But these are the tools that keep it going, and you eliminate the possibility of things going wrong. Yeah. But nothing went wrong. It's like, today they didn't. But the next time you go out to a job, the next day you wake up to your significant other, the next day you do this, you keep ignoring these fundamentals and all that stuff. It's a recipe for just waiting for disaster.
Especially if you see that person used to do a 48, then they were doing a 42.
Yeah.
Now they're doing a 38.
Yeah.
Right.
My numbers are good. It's like, yeah, you're still doing it wrong. As soon as,
right.
I don't like that. So like I said, I think my biggest thing on the closing remarks is literally keep the fundamentals strong and make sure you know what they are. So you keep that is your building block on your everyday stuff. Yeah. You take it personally, eat healthy, get good sleep, all the stuff you hear about.
Right.
People overcomplicate it. It's like, well, make sure you get 10,000 steps a day. It's like, well, you know what? I was on the road for fucking 8 hours. So where am I? When am I supposed to walk in my car? You know what I mean?
Right.
Get a Flintstone mobile.
Yeah. So, but guys,
just get a Tesla.
This is very good, Jake. Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you guys.
Out Tim Ozgener at Warren, Ohio.
Warren, yes, yeah.
Creekside,
at the Grand Resort. Resort tomorrow night. Thursday. They'll probably be listening to this after that.
They listen to it after the fact, but keep an eye out for the events with Ozgener Family Cigars.
Yes.
And looking forward to the event on Friday. If you guys are listening live or whatever, you listen to this on even Facebook or YouTube beforehand.
Yeah.
Check it out. Tinder Box at Easton, $25. Get that whole behind the blends experience. And Jake will be there. Looking forward to that. Tim will be there. Looking forward to that. And guys, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Jake, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Cheers. Absolutely. Glad we could make it happen.
Absolutely. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone.
Mm-hmm.